Jupiter and I know where the line is. I have to pay you to listen to this.
Just saying.
Oh, this course. All right. Definitely. Cookies are cookies. Well, cookies are taking and I have to have You want a cookie? I want a
Go too, because Ginger's good for you.
We have a judgment on compliance.
And it's supposed to rain,
Did you make it till 10 o'clock? I did. Oh my God, did you wake up in the morning? I did. It was a pleasure working together. With you too. No, I think I gained like 8 pounds. So.
Well, we had Mr. Noreen.
Yeah, we did have a good time. You know, after the
Okay. We're going to get started. Just a note to the incoming board members, I see 2 of you in the audience. Somebody's going to need to take over Deb's baking position.
It's like Steve.
No. It has to know. Every time I've ever been in a meeting where it involves taking notes or food, it always gets dumped on a woman. So I think we're going to change the policy. This under this administration, we're changing the policy.
If I'm making it, you're not going to want to eat it.
Is that a threat, or are you volunteering, or is that a threat? Okay.
All right, I am going to call the public hearing to order. This is a public hearing on introductory local law number 7 of 2023 regarding Chapter 185 exemptions. I'm going to ask that the town clerk read the notice into the record.
Notice of public hearing, introductory local law number 7 of 2023, Town of New Lebanon, County, Columbia. Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the Town Board of the Town of New Lebanon on November 14, 2023 at 5:55 p.m. at 14755 Route 22 North, New Lebanon, New York 12125, regarding the adoption of introductory local law number 7 of the Town of New Lebanon for the year 2023. Introductory local law number 7 of the Town of New Lebanon for the year 2023 is a local law to amend Chapter 185 of the Town Code of the Town of New Lebanon entitled Taxation, with respect to the exemptions for senior citizens, volunteer firefighters, ambulance workers, and persons with disabilities with limited incomes. Copies of said proposed local law are available for review at the office of the Town Clerk of the Town of New Lebanon, 14755 Route 22 North, New Lebanon, New York 12125, and the proposed local law can be viewed on the town website at www.townofnewlebanon.com. Participation by the public will be in person at the New Lebanon Town Hall. Those not attending in person who wish to comment on the proposed local law can email in advance of the meeting to supervisor@townofnewlebanon.com, and all comments will be read at the public hearing and entered into the record.
Thank you. With that, I will open the floor to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on introductory local law number 7? Actually, we do have one person signed up. Steve Powers.
Thank you. I had a couple comments. First, I'm in favor of this. There are certain things here that I had questions about, and one is the section 185-9, unremarried surviving spouses of volunteers killed in the line of duty. So anybody else will get this if they've served for 2 years, correct?
Can you repeat which section you're looking at?
185-9.
-9, okay.
All right, so you need to be, I think, serving for 2 years, right, before you can get this as a normal exemption, as a normal volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? But if you look at section B, it says, such deceased volunteer had been enrolled member for at least 5 years. So that means that if a volunteer fireman dies, if I'm interpreting this right, between 2 and 5 years, the spouse is not going to get it. It doesn't seem fair. Am I misinterpreting that?
You are not. So we mirrored the county's local law. That's where that language came in. So a volunteer firefighter gets it after 2 years of service. If 3 years into service they were to pass away, their unremarried surviving spouse would only get it if they were a volunteer for 5 years.
Right, so I throw that out the door. That doesn't seem fair, right?
Can I respond?
Yeah.
I think benefits accrue, generally speaking, with longevity in a position. It may be because of that.
Yeah, I don't know that it's unheard of for benefits becoming available to, say, a spouse to have a longer waiting period than to the firefighter themselves, so to speak. This board can certainly consider. I will say that the county asked very nicely, as much as possible, that we mirror theirs, because from an assessment perspective, let's just say you ended up with this example, and the town adopted something different from the county. Let's say the town changed this to 2 years. Mm-hmm. You could have a situation where the assessor is having to do a different exemption for the same person based on county taxes versus town taxes. And so the county has asked that all of the towns in the county and the school districts kind of adopt the same thing, and they did involve the town assessors, including our town assessor, in the year-long conversation that created this. I'm of the mind to go with keeping it the same, and I don't think it's extremely unfair to say, the firefighter gets it after 2 years, but if the firefighter passes away, the unremarried spouse gets it after 5 years of service. I mean, this board can certainly amend it, but the county did request that we did not change it from the format that they adopted. Thank you. Other comments? Yes, Ed.
Yeah, can I speak as the president of the fire company?
You can.
We were not in dispute with the county decision on this. Basically, for what Deb said, that spousal benefits usually take a little longer than actual membership benefits. So, Steve, we weren't opposed to. She's still, the spouse, male or female, is still going to get the benefit. They just have to wait for a certain amount of time. So we weren't. When we read the county's proposal, we were not in objection to it.
Yeah, and I believe the county did contact all the local fire departments and EMS providers to run things by them.
Yes. Is it if the volunteer dies after service in 2 years? Okay, let's say he or she was served for 2 years and 1 day, and they die. does their spouse start getting those benefits after 5 years?
No.
The person has to have served 5
The
years.
deceased volunteer
Okay,
has
okay.
to be an enrolled
Okay.
member for at least 5 years. Jim Carroll.
If you take a snapshot of the taxes this year, what is the total amount that is going to be pushed off to other taxpayers by passing this? Ballpark.
I might have to get back to you. I know that I'll search for an email from Kim or Suzette if there's any other comments from the public while I'm searching, because I don't know if I'll find it or how quickly I'll find it.
So one other question I had, which has come up, I think, in other towns, is what if there are 2 members of the family volunteering on the LVPA, for instance? Do they get just the single exemption, or is it double?
So exemptions only are for that household. So the house,
It's a
the
household.
property, the tax map ID is either eligible for the exemption or not eligible for the exemption. There's no double or triple.
Right, that's how we work it with the town assessor now, that even though there are 2 family members, there's only one deduction for that tax bracket.
Got it, so.
Even though my sister and I both own different names, because we both own the same property, we only get one volunteer exemption.
Any other public comment? Jim, I might have to get back to you on that.
Okay, well,
Yes,
do you
sir.
remember, is it like $20,000 or $200,000?
It's minimal.
Oh, okay.
The impact on other taxpayers was very minimal. I can get the exact data and send it out to you, send it out via the town clerk's office.
That would be good if you would, just
Sure.
general interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to check my email, make sure I haven't gotten any comments via email. I have not. With that, I will close the public comment and make a motion to adjourn the public hearing at 6:07 PM.
Do I have a second?
Deb?
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yep.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yes.
Supervisor Hoadley?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
Councilmember Tipograph?
Yes.
All right, with that, I will call to order the regular monthly meeting. We will start with a moment of silence, followed by the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have emergency exits at the side here, at the rear here, and the front entrance where you entered. We have minutes approval. We have the September 12th regular monthly meeting minutes, the October 3rd budget workshop meetings, the October 10th special meeting for interviews, the October 24th budget workshop, and the October 30th budget workshop. We are still waiting on the October 10th regular minutes. Those will be on next month's agenda. Any comments or edits or questions from any of the town board members? I will make a motion to accept the 5 sets of minutes as listed, as typed.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
I'm going to abstain as to the September 12th meeting and the October 3rd meeting because I was not at the meeting, so
Okay.
therefore I can't say.
So because I made it as one motion, you can just abstain from the vote.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, great, thank you. Supervisors report, the town board and public got a copy. Any questions from anyone on the town board? I will entertain a motion to approve the supervisors report.
I move we accept the supervisor's report.
A second.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yep.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yes.
Supervisor Hoadley?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
And Councilmember Anthonyson? I'm sorry, typograph.
Sorry, Susan. That's okay. I've been called worse things than that. So, and I say yes.
That's the first time I've done that
And
yet.
either my grandfather used to call me by the dog's name, so it was okay. I'm good at it.
All right, the first privilege of the floor, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak for the first privilege of the floor? William Banker.
So, I just came here tonight to discuss the bulletproof doors and security cameras that you guys are taking bids on, and whether or not you really feel the need for the bulletproof doors, and what substantiates the claim for them. And is it worth forcing the taxpayers to install such items that have never before been required in the town? I've lived here 40 years. I've never seen an incident that would require it. I know there's a lot of fear in the world nowadays, and there's, anybody could say it's a good idea, but we're a small town. Community having access to the town halls, like the fabric of the community. Security cameras are a great idea. The Ring cameras, probably not so good, because Ring would possibly own the footage that it covers, or it could, and may not be requestable down the road. And I'm not sure if I'm right, but I'm pretty sure security cameras would fall underneath the FOIL law. So, security cameras are a great idea, but what exactly does the town board feel the need for bulletproof doors and bulletproof glass, and why do they feel that the taxpayers should pay that expense?
Thank you.
Is there a substantial need for it, is what I'm saying? Was there any credible need for it that would require, such bids to go out and people prevented from access to the town hall, which in the future it could prevent people from, if you guys install these, are you going to allow the public to conduct their business in the hallway, or is it going to be in the office like normally? I think it's a waste of the taxpayers' dollars, so I figured that there's not really a need for it that I would know. I've lived in the town for 40 years. And I think cameras are great because they don't lie. People lie. So cameras are a great idea. We should have them in every part of the building. But Ring cameras are not good because Ring would own the material possibly, and it would be available to the town if they wanted it at some point.
I don't know what a Ring camera is.
Ring camera is an Amazon product,
Right.
and up until recently, if law enforcement wanted access to footage from somebody's Ring camera, Amazon would just turn it over without subpoena.
They would,
I think
yeah.
they now there's been
They
a
could.
movement.
Yes.
You're asking the question, I'm trying to answer,
I got
Bill.
it. Yeah, I recall
My
that.
understanding is now, after much back and forth with that, in order to obtain those footage, law enforcement or any other seeking agency would have to get a subpoena.
They would be,
So, I'm not suggesting that
right,
bars
they would
it
need a
or...
subpoena. It wouldn't be a foilable. So, it wouldn't necessarily be available to the public.
Well,
under the Freedom of Information
I'm certainly not an expert on this, but like a lot of places have security cameras which, if there's not any need for them after 7 days or 30 days or 60 days,
Few months.
they record over. So obviously, old footage would not be available by any means just because it no longer exists.
Right.
So,
Okay, anyone else for privilege of the floor? Meg Robertson.
I was going to add to, or possibly help explain a little bit more to Bill's concern, and that my memory serves me fairly well that about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, maybe less than that, because court is held in here, it can be kind of dicey, despite the fact there's security here and, all that. In a way, it would be better to have the locked door, just because of the very nature of, in a courthouse. When you go into a courthouse, you have to put all of your materials on a conveyor belt thing that they check the metal detectors and all that, and you have to provide ID. So during the time when there's court, and I know there were a couple of times because the individual, the defendant, came from Vermont. He came right down Route 22 and coming right past the town hall and having to go to court. He was an extremely aggressive person who was full of a lot of threats. So I could see the justification where that's concerned, just for nature, being safe. And of course, yeah, it's sad to realize that, small towns, but how many times in the past few years or so where there have been, really tragic consequences, and everybody says, oh, it's never happened in our town, and suddenly it does. But the very nature also of where we are physically as a building, very close to other state lines, and so I could see that, and I understand, where Bill's concerned about that, saying it's a small town, but unfortunately, the nature of our times, that people tend to forget that this is also a courthouse.
Yeah, and just to speak to that, I was court clerk or deputy court clerk at the time, and there was a security issue / threat, and we did get the bulletproof door here, which is what we're talking about for the other offices, and a bulletproof paneling here on the bench. All the county offices have the sheriff's office there, manning them every moment that they're open to the public. Most courts have, metal detectors and other security. So this town board is looking at increasing security here at the town hall to, follow the times. And unfortunately, town officials and the government is the focus of a lot of, attacks and anger. And so this town board went out to bid, which cost us nothing. And tonight we are going to consider if we want to move forward with one of the proposed options to ensure, similar to the court offices, that other offices are also safe and secure.
I think this, and I don't mean to cut you off, Bill, but I think that the idea was to merge safety and access to the public, to the building, so that there was the easy enough access to the building, and at the same time there was appropriate security that would make people who work in the building and come in and out of the building feel secure. There's no perfect answer to that, other than us paying like full-time staff to guard the building and stuff like that. So we're trying to get the balance as good as we can.
May I add one more thing?
You may.
So you guys have explained in really good ways of other means and needs for them. But in the last town board meeting, when you guys presented it, I don't know if it was September or October's meeting, you guys specifically said that the need for the doors were due to recent incidences, and they didn't mention anything along the lines of incidents that happened 13 years ago with the court system. They said the specific individual and recent incidents were the reason for that. And I don't know if that is necessarily true, whether or not the board meeting, there was no evidence put forward whether there was a specific incident or need for it.
So I have
and it seems like almost fraud to the taxpayers to claim the need for it for an incident that's possibly fraud.
So what I will say,
or claiming.
I will say, and then I'm going to move on because you've had the floor for the time that we allot for privilege of the floor. There was an incident that occurred that raised a security concern for town employees. The potential bulletproof doors or ring entry system is not about one specific individual. It is about the need to make sure that our employees are safe, and there was an incident that occurred recently that raised that to the top. We have employees that are feeling unsafe in the building, and we as a town board have a responsibility to ensure that our employees are safe. And so while this, what we are considering is not about one specific individual, there was a recent incident that brought a security concern to the top of the conversation, and we are now looking at an overall security increase at Town Hall, and that is what I will say. Anybody else for privilege of the floor? Mr. Muad'Din, do you have anything for the first privilege of the floor?
I only want to offer up that we want everybody in town service to be safe and to feel secure. We're grateful for everything that everybody does, and we offer up prayers for peace. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, budget amendment number 10. We have ARPA money coming into the budget for the CAC water testing. State retirement bill came in. It was $197 higher than we had estimated. West Lebanon Cemetery, the mowing was a little bit higher than we budgeted for. The Pavilion Kitchen project did go over budget. It's something the town board already approved in a prior meeting, but we do need to pay that voucher. The rec budget went over by $44. BEDC is moving money from the .4 to the .2 for a bulletin board, for a community bulletin board. The newsletter was actually $1,000 over budget, so I don't know, Mars, if we've looked at that for next year's budget. It might be too late now, but that was quite a bit. And then,
I think it had to do with their past billing.
oh, okay,
If you
same as
remember.
the central printing head. So Northco gave us a bill this year that included a lot of 2022 billing, so that could be that.
I'd have to double check on that,
Yep.
but I think that's what it was.
Okay. And then the attorney .4 was very high this month. It did have to do, in a large part, to a FOIL appeal where there was a lot of kind of glitches that we hit and the attorney had to handle. I'm hoping that this 5,000 gets us through the end of the year, at least 2,200 for November and December. So hopefully we can not have a ton of attorney fees and have this be the last one. Fingers crossed. Questions from the board on the budget amendment? I will move that we pass the budget amendment as typed.
I'll second.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yes.
Supervisor Holding?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
Councilmember Tipperary?
Yes.
Bills. So we do have one adjustment to a highway bill. I apologize, I didn't get a chance last week to review the bills. There was one voucher that just had an error. It was under by 50 cents. So we need to increase that voucher. I'll leave this flagged so you can amend the abstract. So 3, 7.
Have to sign again?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. We're gonna pass it as amended if the town board agrees. So it's just a 50 cents difference. What that will do is it will bring our audit, we'll still have generals 427 through 428 in the amount of $32,912.92 as listed on abstract 10A dated November 14th, 2023. We still have general numbers 429 through 468 in the amount of $77,844.19. And it's still highway numbers 144 through 155, but that amount is going to raise 50 cents to $39,727.98. And escrows number 15 through 17 in the amount of $34.50. And SF1 LVPA number 4 in the amount of $38,325.50 as listed on abstract 11 dated November 14th. Questions from any of the board members? All right, I'll move that we pay the bills as amended.
I'll second.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yes.
Supervisor Holding?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
Councilmember Tipperary?
Having read through every single one of them, I'm going to vote.
Wasn't that fun?
It was a lot of fun. Particularly it wasn't coming out of my pocket, so, well, I guess in part it was, so.
All right, we have committee liaison reports. Before I get to specific committee chairs that may have questions for the board, did the board have any questions on any of the typed committee reports? All right, Steve, I know you had a couple things.
Two, if you will. One is I apologize for not getting in the bill for our grad student who's working with us on the Road to Silver application. She's worked 62.24 hours so far at 25 an hour, and so we're asking for the board to, I guess, whatever your official.
You're asking to authorize me to pay it on an interim voucher.
Correct, out of the CSC funds, and it comes out to a total $1,556, $1,556.
Wow. You get 0.24 hours to come out to an even amount.
Yeah, well, I didn't do that.
All right, so the bill did come in, I think, a day or too late.
Yeah.
So it was too late to get it in the stack of bills. So essentially, if someone wanted to make the motion, it would be to pay Michelle
Michelle.
Parks on an interim abstract for $1,556, giving me that
So moved.
authorization. Norman motions.
Can I have a second, please?
Oh, second.
That was Susan.
Yeah.
Councilmember Rasmussen.
Yep.
Councilmember Gordon.
Yes.
Supervisor Holtman.
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer.
Yes.
Councilmember Tippergraff.
Yes.
And just to remind the board, this was on a pre-approved contract to hire her at the hourly rate, so this is really just authorizing the payment. All right, and did you have something else, Steve?
The other thing was in my update to the town board, if you had a chance to read it, to obtain points for the Climate Smart Action Climate Adaptation Plan, which was worked on actually by the Cornell extension people last year that the town board approved. We have to include with that a climate resilience vision. And so I asked the task force members to work on that, combining, taking into account the comprehensive plan and also survey results that from the Cornell survey that was sent out over the last 6 months or so, as well as other aspects from the workshops that I've been involved with over, and Ed was too, and attended, and Ted, over the last couple of months. And that was included in there. I don't know if you had a chance to read it. Do you want me to read it, or? I'm asking the town board to approve it, so it's in your document there.
Any questions from the town board?
No. No.
I'll make a motion that we approve the
Climate resilience vision.
climate resilience vision as drafted, that we adopted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Any other committees that need either a authorization from the town board or anything they need to add to their written committee reports? Okay. Thank you all very much. All right, old business. So we interviewed last month for the community center coordinator position. Hopefully the community center will be opening, we're looking at potentially December 1st. And this appointment is to hire someone to work 9 hours a week for open hours of the community center to run and program everything that was in the public notice. And I will make a motion that we appoint Robert Long from now through the end of 2023. A new appointment will get made next year by the incoming board at the organizational meeting at a rate of $21 per hour for up to 9 hours per week.
Second.
Councilmember Rasmussen.
Yep.
Councilmember Gordon.
Yes.
Supervisor Holtman.
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer.
Yes.
Councilmember Tippergraff.
Yes.
And the nice thing is he has already been fully vetted and background checked by the county and the state and the feds because he's our summer camp director as well. And thank you to Peter Flyer, if you're watching, for putting in a letter of interest as well. And thank you to Rob for being willing to do this. Okay, Depot Committee. So just a little bit of background, especially for Susan being new to the board and the public that wasn't following. The Corkscrew Rail Trail obtained the property that has the historic depot on it. The town entered into an MOU that was a pretty loose MOU, basically saying that the town could have use of the building for whatever proper purpose we deemed was in the best interest of the community. And with that MOU, we got the county to forgive the penalties and interest on the back taxes due. They made whole on the actual taxes because the county always makes us whole, but forgave those. We formed a committee that included members of the town, the Historical Society, the Rail Trail, to kind of research what other towns have done, who owns the station, who maintains it, where does the funding come from. Janine Tonetti came as chair of that committee and made a report to the town board a few months back. And there has been a new sort of committee that has met twice now that includes 3 organizations, the Rail Trail being the owners of the building, the Historical Society having vested interest in historic preservation in the town, and the town board having vested interest in historic preservation and also potential use of the building. What we are looking at now, and I'm not looking for a town board vote tonight, it probably won't be until next year with the new board that we'll be looking to vote on this, but we're talking about 3 phases. It's hard to talk about an MOU where the town uses the building because the building is not usable. So essentially phase 1 is get it so that the roof isn't leaking anymore, so that the roots aren't growing under the building, kind of secure the building from any more damage. Phase 2 would be an actual renovation, and then phase 3 would be when the building was ready to be used, and there's all different potential uses, from a museum to a welcome center to a retail use to a combination thereof. So what the committee is proposing is that we take them 1 phase at a time. So instead of making any future commitments or promises, let's just focus on phase 1 between the town, the Historical Society, and the Rail Trail. Who's responsible for what? How are we going to make this happen? One of the proposals that I brought forward, that again will be up to either this board in December or the incoming board in January, is could we budget a small amount in town funds to maybe allow them to use the town engineer to do a analysis of the building condition. Is it savable? Does it have a good structure? Those are things that the grant application is going to need anyway. When we get to phase 2, potentially the town could help with a grant application. Obviously the renovation will be expensive. That will not be something that we pay for through the town, but helping access funding through the state or federal government through grants. But really for phase 1, some of the things we're talking about from the town, there's some tree work that needs to be done. They got quotes from Cassidy Tree Service. Could we potentially budget for that? It is not in this budget. It would have to be a budget amendment next year. But until we have those exact amounts, we can't really budget for it. So this is more just an update. I don't know that it makes sense for this board to enter that MOU. It probably makes more sense to wait for the incoming board to enter into that agreement, because that board's going to be the one that has to do the budget amendment. And so if this board says, yeah, we're on board and we're going to pay $8,000, and then the incoming board says, no, we're not, we could be in breach of that contract. So more of an update, especially to those incoming board members in the audience. This is a building that is really important to our history. It could have a lot of potential benefits to the town, to the community. It's right on the rail trail. So we're going to keep working as a side committee. I will be looking for a town board member to join the committee when Deb's off, and we thought a lawyer might be a really good presence to have on the committee, just saying.
If I find one, I'll let you know.
Okay, good. Deb or Meg, did I miss anything important? I mean, it's generally just an update to the board of where we're at. Okay.
Just for the record, I was a criminal defense lawyer, so I'm not sure it's definitely my wheelhouse, but I'll see.
You learned something new.
Good. Okay.
No old dogs and new tricks, or...
Yeah. And one thing we talked about is obviously involving 3 entities is great for things like grant applications and more people involved, but you also really need clear guidelines and guardrails of who is responsible for what. So that's one of the things the committee is working on, is defining the town would be responsible for this piece, the Historical Society this piece, and the Rail Trail this piece. All right. Introductory local law number 7. It was introduced in October. We had the public hearing. It does not need any referral to the planning boards, and it does not need any seeker. Yeah.
SEQA stands for what?
State Environmental Quality Review Act.
Okay.
Did I get that right?
Yeah. Okay.
It's an environmental view. So something like this wouldn't need it. Something like a zoning law always needs it,
Okay.
and it's asking, is there going to be any kind of environmental impact? Okay, so I will make a motion to adopt introductory local law number 7 of 2023 as local law number 8 of 2023, and ask that the town clerk file the local law with New York State.
Seconded.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yep.
Councilmember Gordon?
Which one is this again?
The exemptions, the one that we had
Oh,
the public hearing on.
Sorry.
You're good.
Yes.
You had us in suspense.
Supervisor Holtman?
Yes.
Councilmember Shaner?
Yes.
Councilmember Tippegraff?
Yes.
All right, great. And just so everyone knows, we had an introductory local law from 22 that got adopted in 23. So every number will get bumped up when it's adopted. That's why we're doing that. It makes a lot of extra work for town clerk. She loves it. Okay, introductory local law number 8. So this is the one that the ZRC has been working on for a long time. At last month's meeting, we got a recommendation from the ZRC, and we as a town board voted to move forward as recommended, and Ted worked with John to compile this introductory local law. The process for this would be we introduce it tonight. We refer it to both the county planning board, which I actually already did. If there's any changes, I will let them know, but their agenda, their meeting is this week, I believe. And then we would refer it to the local planning board. And we also have part 1 of the secret review, which is the environmental. And then the attorney also did include, and I think Steve had requested it last time, we did send out to the public, we didn't put it in your packet, but the red line code 205, so you can actually track if this law were adopted as written, what does our zoning change look like? So any questions first from the town board?
Yes.
Yes.
I have a question on page 4, or at least on the computer it was on page 4, number 8A. This is about the solar, I believe.
This is about storage units, avoiding prime farmland. Oh, I'm sorry, solar overlay.
Yeah. Or are we only voting on storage units?
So,
What page?
What?
where were you?
Well, on the
Page 4.
computer it was on page 4, number 8A. It just says, I just have a question. It says, this is with regard to locating solar farms.
This is old, I mean, this is established.
So nothing's
Oh,
going to
okay.
change with solar overlay. What
Oh,
this
okay.
is saying is
Never mind.
paragraph B of this section in its entirety will read, so there's sections that already exist, such as solar overlay.
Okay, never mind.
Okay. But that can be confusing, right? Because it's in there and you're like, I didn't think we were talking about solar. But he rewrote that entire section.
Right.
All right.
The only change here is sub number 6. We're creating a new,
The commercial residential district.
I mean, I'm sorry, not number 6. The one on page 3.
General commercial,
General
section
commercial.
3.
We're creating a new zone in the heart of town, right?
Oh,
Right.
okay.
That's what this does, that section. It just creates that new zone.
Oh, and that's the only thing that's
Change.
we're voting on? I mean, that's the only
No,
change?
that's the only change to this
For that
particular
chapter,
section.
for that section.
Okay. Are we voting on storage unit?
Well, tonight we're introducing the local law. Next month we're voting on it.
Okay.
And it is what was presented by the ZRC last month that this board agreed to that is now compiled into this local law. Any other questions from the
No,
town
no,
board?
I think the
Okay.
work done was very good.
I will make a motion to recognize the introduction of introductory local law number 8 of 2023.
I will second it.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yes.
Supervisor Holden?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
Councilmember Chippewa?
Yes.
So you asked about SECR. This is this full environmental assessment
Okay,
form
yes,
that
I
the
saw.
attorney prepared.
And I wrote on my little post-it, what is this? So now I know
Okay.
what it is, so.
There you go. And the answer for this law is no to minimal. There's not going to be a negative environmental impact. Okay, I will make a motion to classify the enactment of introductory local law number 8 of 2023 as a type 1 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, to declare that the town board as the only involved agency shall be the lead agency under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, someone else will make this. You want to read that motion?
Sure.
It authorizes me.
Motion to classify the enactment of introductory local law number 8 of 2023 as a type A action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, to declare the town board as the only agency shall be the lead agency under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and to authorize the supervisor to execute the Part 1 of the full environmental assessment form as prepared by the attorney for the town.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yes.
Supervisor Holden?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
Councilmember Tippecraft?
Yes.
Do you want to read that referral to county motion, John or Susan?
Motion to authorize the supervisor to refer introductory local law number 8 of 2023 to the Columbia County Planning Board pursuant to New York General Municipal Law 239-M and to the Town Planning Board pursuant to Town Code 205-15B.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yep.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yes.
Supervisor Hoagland?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
Councilmember Tippecraft?
Yes.
All right, public hearing. So if you remember, our December 12th meeting is bumped to 7:30 for the concert. We already scheduled that and promoted it. So what I'm suggesting, we have 2 local laws that we will need public hearings on. I'm suggesting that we schedule them for 7:20 and 7:25, knowing that we can start them late. But that way, if the concert doesn't go the whole hour and a half and we're here ready to go, if not, then we start the 7:21 at 7:30. We start the 7:25 one when that one's done. How does the board feel about that?
Fine.
Okay, so I will make a motion to schedule a public hearing on introductory local law number 8 of 2023 for December 12th at 7:20 p.m. to be held at Town of New Lebanon Town Hall and to authorize and direct the town clerk to publish and post notice thereof as required.
Second.
That was Susan?
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay. This is roll call.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Okay. Yeah, I sent it to you, but I can send it to you.
That's okay, I just want to make sure I have it.
Okay.
He sent me some of those PDFs.
I know I sent it to you because I forwarded it to you for the board version. All right, introduction of introductory local law number 9 of 2023. At our last meeting, we talked about the attorney's suggestion that the FOIL appeal officer not be the entire town board due to the time frame in which we have to respond to FOIL appeals. We all agreed at the last meeting that we wanted the attorney to draft a local law that would change the FOIL appeal officer from the town board to the town supervisor. Any questions from the town board?
No. That looks like it'd be more efficient.
So again, this one has no referral to the planning board, no seeker, and so it's simply introducing it and scheduling a public hearing. So I will make a motion to introduce introductory local law number 9 of 2023 and schedule a public hearing for December 12th at 7:25 p.m. and authorize and direct the town clerk to advertise the public hearing accordingly.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Actually, because that's introducing the local law.
Oh, we need to do a roll
on that
call.
one.
Yeah, sorry. We did that in roll call. Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yes.
Supervisor Holden?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
And Councilmember Tippecraft?
Yes.
Okay, so, well, update. Not good news. We paid the engineer and their hydrologist, is that the right word, to look at the landscape of the park and try and identify a good location for a well that they thought would yield a lot of water. We knew when we authorized that and the well driller that there is always a risk that it does not yield what we hope. And that essentially is what happened. It was not the type of material that the engineer report thought it would be. It basically isn't a location at all. So we have a couple options that I see. We walk away from the project and cut our losses. We go back to the modified version where the features have less of a water yield and pull from the existing well, or we try again in another location. The engineer's recommendation is that we try again in another location. Obviously, we don't pay the engineer again, but we would pay the well driller again and could end up with the same. The town board did authorize up to, I think, $45,000 for well drilling. This first go around was 13, so, but we could do it again and spend another 13 and still not have
Still
water.
not get any.
So, I don't know.
Can I ask a
think
question, and again, this predates me.
Yeah.
Was the looking for the well and water related to the splash pad?
Well, so yes and no. This project has been very convoluted from the get-go, just to give kind of a 300-foot view. We started with the engineer saying, oh, it's going to cost, I think it was $75,000, including engineering fees. Like, you're going to have a new splash pad in the park for $75,000. And we said, awesome, let's do that. We do have an existing, I wouldn't call it a splash pad, but a water feature in the park that is outdated and unsafe. So one of the issues is that we have summer camp for 8 weeks. It's very hot, and there's no way for the kids to cool down. There's no indoor space to cool off. So having a water feature was potentially a really good thing, not just for the camp, but for all the kids throughout the summer. They started the project, and we went out to bid, and the bids came in closer to $300,000. And we said, holy moly, that is nowhere near the, $50,000 to $75,000 that we thought. So we encumbered the funds that had been in that year's budget, which was 22, I believe, and then we budgeted more for 23, which with the encumbered funds would cover that higher cost of the project. Now that we had gone out to bid, we knew the cost of the project. Through that process of bidding, the bidder said, are you sure your well can handle this? This is, 60 gallons per minute. You guys don't have a public water supply. That seems like a high yield for a private well. And I said, well, we hired an engineer. I'm sure they thought of all those things. No, they had not thought of all those things. So at that point, the board was faced with modify the splash pad design and have the current well feed it, because we did test the current well and it does have some feed that could go to a splash pad, but the features would be less water coming out, less features, it wouldn't be as good of a splash pad. In that same conversation, we acknowledged that the Department of Health does not love the fact, and it is not in compliance, that we have too many things being pulled from the current well. Forget the splash pad for a minute. We have one well, and it's feeding the town hall, the town highway garage, the Little League snack shack, the tennis court bathrooms, the pavilion kitchen, and that's too many things that it's feeding. We used to have two wells. We had a well behind the highway garage, and we had a well over in the park. The highway garage one fed the town hall and highway garage. The park well fed the park features. Way before my time, I don't know when, we contaminated the neighbor's well. And instead of drilling them a new well at that time, the town board at the time gave them our well from behind the highway garage. So when this town board decided to go ahead with drilling a second well, it wasn't just for the splash pad, although that was certainly the impetus. It was also realizing that we are currently not in compliance with Department of Health regulations because we are feeding too many things from one well. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a second well and have one dedicated to one section and one dedicated to the other. And at that point, we authorized up to $45,000 for drilling, because the other thing is you have no exact quote from a well drilling company until they know what they hit and how deep they have to go and all of those things. They really can't give an exact quote. So we said, what's the maximum we're willing to go to get this well? And that decision was $45,000. We went for it. It came back not the way we wanted. The engineer says, drill again, let's try this other location. This board gets to decide where we go from there. I was going to say, I know what Norman thinks. He talked about it last time. He's like, cut our losses. Or when do we, that's what he said, when do we cut our losses? And that's when we said.
I think we're there.
I think I'm coming to
Well, that-
agree with Norman, too.
Yeah, no, I think,
It just, a
it was a
trickle of
worthwhile
water.
try. 300 is way past 75. And I think, I agree we need to do something to keep the kids cool in the summer and not provide a more attractive area for them to play and stuff. So we've still got $32,000 left in the authorization for well drilling. And the thing is, I wasn't aware of the health department portion of it. Now that I am, that to me seems to be the priority over the splash pad. So my suggestion would be that we go ahead and drill another well so that we are more in compliance with the health requirements. And do some really modest stuff. I mean, when we were kids, we played in sprinklers in the yard, and that worked out great. I don't want to be the old guy who says, "Oh, I was a kid. I rolled a hoop down the street." But the $300,000 splash pad, I was shocked when I heard about it, and I just can't get over it. So my suggestion would be is drill the well and cut our losses there, and spend some money to make some sort of water features out on the lawn because that's the only time. I mean, splash pad is really. It's nice the rest of the time. It's important to have something like that for the camp. So you do that on the lawn instead of in the splash pad. And we can buy some really fancy, slip and slides and sprinklers and hoses that shoot in the air, but they only use 2 gallons a minute, so we're good.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying go ahead with a second well drilling, but forget about the splash pad, but still go ahead with a second well drilling to make sure that we have.
And spend some, like I say, some minimal, relative to $300,000, minimal amount of money on what the summer camp needs to provide some entertainment for the kids.
Well, what I will say is the current well has enough to provide what you're talking about, slip and slides.
Oh,
and
good. So
sprinklers.
right.
We don't have to drill another well.
No, but you do for the health department.
Well,
Once you brought that into it, to me, that makes it pretty mandatory.
well, I did bring it up last time. We are not, until we apply for a new permit for something, we don't need to get in compliance. We're kind of grandfathered.
I don't want to be grandfathered on health stuff. I want to be healthy.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that Rob Long last summer discovered that we do have a water feature in the park, and he had the kids using it, and I think they really enjoyed themselves.
The creek.
The stream.
Yeah, there you go. Another option.
And the maintenance is very low, very cheap.
And there's no problem with that in terms of health.
No.
Great.
They did like make your own boats and had like boat races.
That's the way
Yep.
the old people should do it. We did it.
Yeah, but you're way older than I am. Don't try getting in my boat.
I know. I think those are good points. The stream or a sprinkler system.
Well, another option that we haven't really looked into is our current one is unsafe. But could we renovate it without it being a new application? So the problem is a new thing goes through current health department requirements, which is chlorination and backflow preventer and all these things. Is there potentially some kind of modification to our current one that makes it safe? It used to be nice. The sprinkler would
What's
come on.
What's unsafe about it?
So the bottom
cracked,
is
I know.
the bottom is very slippery, and kids were slipping and hitting their heads. And we tried to get like a rubber padding, kind of like a Tractor Supply kind of padding, and that failed miserably. But this was kind of like town employees, not me, but town employees on their own trying to come up with solutions. So not Barton and
so the
Lojudas,
question-
no offense, but maybe Paul McCreary taking a look at it and being like, is there some
So we haven't
retrofitting?
investigated minimal renovation to the existing pad to
Right.
get to a minimal standard.
Right.
I'm still pretty queasy when you say, well, it's not up to the health standards, but we can still use it. All right, if I were sending little kids to summer camp, that would be the kind of thing that alarms me. But
Yeah. But it's no different than sprinklers in the yard.
no.
That's no different than having
Right.
sprinklers in the yard.
Yeah.
It's the idea that the current health
Sure.
department
Well,
requirements are
then
chlorinated water.
So why don't we, then move that we should investigate what the cost of just renovating that to being minimally acceptable standard, not, I hate to say it this way, but not a $300,000 mega galactic splash pad, but a $20,000 cleaner splash pad, and go with that.
Yeah.
But first we need to see if it's a $20,000 project, or if anybody we call is going
Right.
to try to make us spend $100,000, in which case sprinklers are really good.
What is, does the plumbing work on that splash pad?
Yeah, I mean it's literally a water line that runs to it, and then it's got a
Almost like a
spigot
shower head.
at the top
Yeah.
that sprinkles. It's a sprinkler,
It's
but
a fancy shower head.
It's hard plumbed into
Yeah.
our water supply.
Okay, but it worked. That portion of it works.
Yes.
It's just that the base is unsatisfactory because it's slippery and.
Well, that's a big deal when you got kids running around.
Well, it is,
Yes.
but there's things
There are
like
things you can
sand
fix it,
paint,
yeah.
and I mean,
Sure.
you could paint on something on the concrete that would make it a rough surface.
Well, so that's part of the problem is that I won't mention who, but there was a group that really wanted to volunteer at the park that painted it, and they painted it with like latex paint, which then when it gets wet,
Yeah, right, yeah, okay.
so.
Thank them for their volunteer service and,
Some pools, hot tub areas, when you go to places, they have mats specifically for wet floors. That's what
That's what we were looking at with Tractor Supply.
because they
And
actually have
remember,
a
we ordered them
traction.
online and they came, and they were.
But that you can get
Dollhouse
big
size.
ones. Yeah, we can get big ones for that, and that way we would.
So I hear what you're saying, Norman. I would be more comfortable not moving forward on trying for a second well until we do a little bit
Sure.
more
Yeah, yeah.
research into,
Yep.
what is, if
I
it's going to
agree
be a
with that.
sprinkler system.
I again, was
versus-
also put off by the enormous amount of money that was for the splash pad. We should figure out a way that gets us to what we want to do without we're spending money reasonably and efficiently.
And if we do move forward with the well drilling in the future, we don't need to repay for the engineered plan. Like, we're already there whether we do it this month or 6 months from now and decide, hey, we really need that second well. Okay, so I don't know that we need to. Yeah.
Just a comment, why not retest the so-called contaminated well? I mean, if it was 10, 15 years ago, maybe
Maybe
it's
it's
fine now.
rested, yeah.
You're talking about the contaminated well on the neighbor's property?
Or, I thought you said it's behind the garage.
We contaminated our neighbor's well and we gave them our well
Oh.
on
okay.
our property. So we
All right,
still have
that's
2
fine.
good wells and we gave them one of
Yeah.
ours.
So retest them, we have the ARPA funds for testing water.
I mean, I can look into if that's an option.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe
make it a
now
more-
it works, and
That's
now
an
it's
idea.
good,
Yeah.
and we can take back our well.
You should be on the board.
I'll vote for him.
All right, well, I will make a motion, just so it's in the minutes. I will make a motion that we hold off on trying to drill another well, and we hold off on the proposed splash pad project until further discussion at some point down the road.
Further investigation.
Second.
Susan?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
And now I feel really bad, Liz, that you spent all this extra time on preparing another bid.
All I did was up at the cost of the increased cost.
I would, if the board's okay with it, instead of denying the bid, I would like to just not take action on the bid, because let's just say in 3 months something shifts and all of a sudden we get our well back from our neighbor and now we want to move forward, we don't have to go back out to bid again. So we'll just take no action on the bid. No motion needed. Okay. All right, the next 2 agenda items I'm going to discuss together because they are 2 different possible options for increased town hall security. One is the bulletproof office doors with access window, which looks like this court door. The other is a ring entry system that would have cameras at each person's desk and would show who was at the door and the ability to buzz that person in. The first one, the bulletproof doors, came in with doors and shipping at $46,100, and that is for 4 doors. The proposal would include the town clerk's office, the tax collector and assessor, the building department, and the supervisor's office. The bids did ask for prices installed. We did not get any bids for installed doors, so if we were to accept this bid, we would get the doors here and we would need to go out to bid on installation.
And I appreciate getting a bid, you have specific numbers, but is there, for people who know this, what's the general amount what ballpark are we talking about to install these? I mean, is it $20,000, is it $75,000? Just so that because it's hard to judge the bid, it's like buying buying a piece of furniture in IKEA and then, having to hire somebody to put it together,
So, yeah, Ed.
History of the answer to Susan's question would be that you have to wait till you read the specifications on the door so you know what kind of building modifications you need to install. You can't just give an off-the-head ballpark figure on that because you need to know the modifications to the building and the walls to install such doors because it is a security door. It's not just a regular house door.
So I'd be uneasy about this, because of the uncertainty of
Installation costs.
of what the installation costs were.
So it was a while ago.
Yes.
And these are not exact numbers. This is totally off memory. But when we did this door, I want to say the door and window itself was about $7,000. So it looks like they've gone up, a significant amount with COVID and increased everything. And I want to say installation was around $1,500 for one door. So I mean, if that was the same, which I'm sure it's not, that would be $6,000 just to install. If bulletproof doors are something the town board wants to consider, we could go out to bid again for just installation and reach out to some of our local contractors now that we have the specs on the doors. I will say that we currently have the front door locked, and that is a very short-term solution, so there's a little time sensitivity, although we shouldn't make a decision without all the information. The other alternative we were looking at was the ring entry system. There was two different options. One was more expensive at the beginning, $41,935, and then $30 a month, or a reduced cost, but you do a 5-year service agreement for basically $245 a month, and the initial cost is $29,435. I will say that we got some insight that I shared in a meeting that we were having for legal advice about if the idea is potential security threats. So I have a camera in my office. It shows me that there's a person at the door. I may or may not know said person. I don't see a weapon. They're not yelling violently, and I let them in the building. And they happen to have a gun on them, and they are there to harm an employee. You're actually not safe, right? Whereas bulletproof doors, where the employees are behind the closed door, anyone can come in the building, and if they are there to do potential harm, you are now behind a secured door. And so if our goal is security of employees, probably the bulletproof door route will create more of that safety than a buzzer.
Yeah. Also, I agree with you there also, because if you have 5 people in the building and 3 of them see the person and perceive a risk and say, I don't want to open the door, but 2 of them say, yeah, he's all right, or she's all right, or they're all right, then somebody's poor judgment allows them. Then again, once they're in the building, they're in the building. So I think the bulletproof, as expensive as it is still a better route.
Yeah. Phil?
Is it normal procedure for towns to pre-screen the citizens that enter their doors?
I'm not going to get into that
The
conversation.
Committee on Open Government doesn't agree with that.
Great. I'm not going to get into that conversation. Thank you. So, I mean, do we want to rule out the buzz entry system and look at the bulletproof door? And if so, do we want to wait on accepting the bid until we get quotes on how much it is to install it? Because originally that was our bid, was for that final price with everything.
Yeah.
And like Susan said, it's hard to make a decision without knowing.
I mean, if I had to choose, I would choose the bulletproof doors, but wait and get at least a ballpark. And again, I appreciate that may be different because you have to fix the door, etc. But it's like a splash pad. We think $75,000, that would be good, and it's all of a sudden
$500,000,
etc. So I don't want to get the doors and then have them sit in a closet someplace because we don't have the money to install them.
So my first question for the board, because I think we can be done with that, is everyone in agreement that the buzz entry way is not the way to go to spend that kind of money, and it really doesn't increase security?
I mean, I tend to agree with you, but I think if we all feel that way, then does it really matter what the bulletproof glass doors cost? What are our other options? I mean, if the goal is for employees to feel safe, which I agree is important, is there another option?
Probably not, but we still shouldn't be authorizing. We can't, by law, I think, authorize spending money without knowing what it's going to be.
Well, we can't authorize the installation, and I agree with you, Deb, but the trouble is, let's just say that we ordered the doors and then we just couldn't find an installer.
Right.
Not that we didn't want to spend the money on installation, but there was nobody that was willing to install these doors. that would be irresponsible. So I don't think the question is, what's the threshold for employee safety? If the installation is 6,000, we're going to do it,
Right.
but if it's 10,000,
Well,
forget
it's going to be so much money, we could hire, somebody to,
armed security guard.
I'm being silly, but we should at least have some idea about what kind of money we're talking about.
Agreed.
So,
And the other thing that is important if we move ahead with the bulletproof doors, so we might want to potentially work on it, is a policy, right? Because if you buy all these bulletproof doors and install them, and then employees are just sitting with their doors wide open,
Right.
then that completely defeats the purpose. So there would have to be a policy that employees were, to keep the doors shut during open hours.
Yeah. How many doors did you say?
4.
4.
Well, we don't have a policy at this point.
We
But
don't.
what I was going to ask is, if you're in your office by yourself and you have an appointment, somebody's coming to see you, do you have to talk through the door, or are you allowed to let that person into your office?
So we could define all that through the policy. I think the thing we want to be sure of is if more than one person work in the office and one person doesn't want to feel like the stick in the mud, even though they're not fully comfortable. So you could run into that where there's 2 people in the office and I'm like, oh, you're overreacting, let's just have the door open. But that would be addressed in the policy. And maybe what we should do is work on, it doesn't have to be a written policy, but what do we want to say in there? Before next meeting, and again, even if we don't adopt the policy at the next meeting, to start thinking about it. So I think the board is clear that we can reject the bid for the buzz entry system.
Yeah.
That is not the way to go if we go forward with any
I
path.
agree.
So I will make a motion to deny the bid received from Doyle Security for the door access control system. And ask that the town
Go ahead,
clerk
Susan.
notify them.
Second.
Susan.
I'm sorry, who did the second? I apologize.
Susan.
Marianne.
Say now. That being all in favor, please.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed?
All right, then I think we're all in agreement that we should go out to bid for installation of the 4 doors, providing the specs of the doors to the potential bidders, and asking for a final cost installed, and look at potential drafts of a policy. And I could certainly reach out to other towns and county buildings that have kind of a screened, protected access system to see what policies they have in place.
That's the question. So are you talking about retrofitting the existing doors or getting brand new doors?
Brand new doors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a door with a frame and a solid hinge. It's just like this, and they install it in the same area, but like Ed is saying, depending on the specs of the door, you might have to do something different with the framing and sheetrock around it.
Okay.
They did with this one.
Ed, you're talking about the door frame around it, not the actual door itself.
Right,
including the walls.
Right.
You're
I
going to
think they
hold
did
the
when they
door,
put that one in.
which is built to specs, but you need to build you need the door specs to give a price to install it around the door.
And so these doors come with the frame.
Okay.
This is the whole thing.
Right.
But the question that Ed's talking about is, do you have to reinforce the sheetrock and framing around the door frame? Because these are with frames, and it's a continuous hinge, so instead of hinges like that, it's a metal hinge all the way down the door. Yeah.
Might the Association of Towns know of other towns who have installed them lately and might be able to give a ballpark of what they paid?
I think just going out to bid is the quickest way to find a price. Okay, so I will make a motion that we go out to bid on installation of the 4 doors with the specs as defined by this bid, with bids due on or before December 8th at 4 p.m. And ask the town clerk to advertise.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Getting installed this, and then if they want to come do a walkthrough. Okay, and then I will look at some other towns or counties that have these types of security measures and see what, if any, policies they have and discuss some policy points. Okay. Agreement to provide emergency medical services. We held a public hearing the other day for the agreement between Chatham Rescue Squad and the town of New Lebanon. Susan pointed out that we were missing an attachment, an exhibit, and Chatham Rescue provided that. There's both the fee schedule and the notice of charity care policy. Any questions from anyone on the board?
Is this pretty much the same as we have?
It is. There's no changes
That's what I
other than dates.
I did have a question, which is, if the Chatham Rescue Squad gets reimbursed for money from the people who take ambulance service, for those people who are not 100%, exempt from it, does all that money go to the Chatham Rescue Squad, or do we get reimbursed for any of it?
No.
Uh-huh.
So their operating budget is based on monies that they collect from billing, from Medicare, from the county. The county has a shared ambulance service, so if Chatham Rescue's pulled over here, they'll pull in Valatia or Greenport or some other ambulance, and they get paid a much lesser rate, but they get paid by the county for that. So their budget is, here's our operating expenses minus our revenues, just like our budget works, and their revenues are those billings. Here's what's left, and we're going to split it amongst the 5 towns. Any other questions from anyone on the board? So it's authorizing me to sign this contract, if anyone would like to make that motion.
I will make that motion. I will make the motion that you, History as the town supervisor, sign the contract with the Chatham Rescue Squad for 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
All right, so next is a chargeback agreement. Oh,
So the public still hasn't gotten that rate schedule? Right?
yeah, they did.
It's
I
not
sent
in
it to
here.
Marcy to send out to the public.
It's not in here though, right?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't see it.
Well, it was in the stuff that, I got the thing earlier than...
Yeah, you sent
But
it.
there is a...
I thought you sent that out.
I know I sent it to you. I don't know if you sent it to
Yeah,
the
I don't
public.
know if you sent it, I can't remember off the top of my head if it went out in the email to the public or if it was just kind of the
rate of,
board. I can't remember off the top of my head. But everything that's in there should have been what was in the email.
I know I forwarded it to you,
yes,
and actually
that's-
I send it out to
yeah.
the public, but,
I
yeah,
mean,
we have it. He's saying.
Oh!
Yeah, I see the agreement to provide emergency medical services, and then the next thing afterwards is the,
She may not have put it in the printed packets.
Okay.
I mean, I sent it to her to send out. She thinks she sent it out.
I have to go.
We
look
can
up
check,
that.
but I can tell you right now, there's not a lot of fees.
okay.
It is ALS 1, 1,800, ALS 2, 2,000, BLS 1,400, plus $30 a mile for mileage. And if the ambulance shows up and there is care refusal, so the ambulance comes and the person does not want, it's $400 for an ALS no transport and $250 for a BLS no transport. And compared to other rescue squads, their rates are on the lower end. They just raised them to be more in line with other rescue squads, but they were still on the lower end.
And that's regardless of where they're transporting you to?
Well, the $30 a mile is for where you're getting
Okay.
transported to. So it's a flat rate for an ambulance ride, and then if you go to Pittsfield, you're paying $30 a mile to Pittsfield. If you're going to Albany, you're paying $30 a mile to Albany.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So the other is the chargeback agreement. So how?
I should let you know. I had already sent out public emails and stuff before this even came to you. You sent it out at 10:24 Friday night.
Right.
And I had already sent everything out to the public.
I know,
So it
and-
wasn't in that initial one.
Okay.
That just wanted to let you know. So
Yep.
It wasn't in the initial one.
Just maybe you don't read the red lines. I will send it along to Marcy to send out to the public when I get it. So anyway, it's fine. Okay, so the chargeback agreement, because the taxes for ambulance services are actually collected through the county. And so this is a chargeback agreement for them to be able to pay Chatham Rescue the money that they collect from New Lebanon taxpayers.
That Columbia County Treasurer pays to Chatham
So
Rescue from the monies from us.
This is us telling Columbia County that New Lebanon residents have to pay $108,431 for EMS. The county collects it and they cut a check to Chatham Rescue.
Okay. And do they, and like, what percentage of the $105,000, 108, I mean, does the county pay versus what we pay?
We pay all of it.
Okay. But it comes from county?
It's in your county tax bill.
Okay.
So in your county, now the one thing the county is working on currently, we paid Fitch and Associates to do a countywide study of ambulance services. We're now looking at fire services, and the ambulance services is looking at, right now we do shared services in the county. So right now, all the rescue squads in Columbia County respond to all the calls. So if our rescue squad is off on a different call, we're going to get a different rescue squad. And the county oversees and covers that. But what ends up happening is the town of New Lebanon might be paying 10 cents per thousand assessed value, and the town of Greenport residents might be paying 3 cents. But we're getting the same services because we're sharing all the services. So the county is discussing, we don't want a county-run ambulance service. Anytime you take a service like that and run it through the government, usually not a great thing.
We agree with
But what we are potentially looking at, and we are in the very early phases, is some sort of county-wide budgeting and contracting with the rescue squads. So for example, if we say these 5 rescue squads provide services, and every resident of Columbia County is going to pay the same $10,000 per assessed value, and we're actually looking at assessed value not really being a fair way to do it, because just because one town might have more expensive houses, that doesn't mean they're getting more ambulance calls. They actually might be getting less. So we're potentially looking at population, which actually correlates more directly to the number of calls. If you look at the population of each town and how many calls they're getting versus the assessed value, it's probably a more fair and equitable way. And then we would say, okay, all of it goes through the county, through either the Board of Supervisors as opposed to through each town board, or through some committee that is comprised of one representative from each EMS provider, one representative from each town. The pushback we're going to get is right now some towns are paying 3 cents per thousand assessed value and they're not going to want to pay more. The towns who are paying 12 cents and are going to come down to 8 are going to be happy with it. So we ran into a similar thing when Colleen was supervisor with Chatham Rescue. There's 5 towns, and it was out of whack. New Lebanon was overpaying. Austerlitz was underpaying. We came up with a 5-year plan to kind of equalize that. And, Austerlitz wasn't thrilled, of course. So I will report back on where we're at with that. Again, we're in very preliminary conversations. But it would also, again, you would have each rescue squad as its own entity with its own board, with its own, but it would more equalize, because right now it's not that fair that Chatham Rescue is getting pulled way over here and getting a small amount, and then Valatia Rescue is like, well, we don't have anyone available for that call. And so it would be much more like, hey, everybody has to respond to everything based on, and they're looking at a GPS mapping system too, so that there's actually some rhyme and reason to where they're pulling the ambulances from right now. And right now they're doing their best, but there's not always rhyme or reason, and they're pulling one from way over here to way down here, and then you're leaving this whole area not very well covered. But it's based right now on who gets the 911 call and where they dispatch and where they put on call. And so we're working on making it a better system at the county. But for this year, we're going with the same system that we had in place. Again, this is authorizing me to sign the chargeback agreement with Columbia County, so I don't know if someone else wants to make that motion.
I'll make that motion. That History as town supervisor signs the chargeback contract with the county.
A second.
Yeah. Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yep.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yes.
Supervisor Hopman?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
Councilmember Tippecraft?
Yes.
All right, contract for services with LVPA for 2024. My husband is fire chief, so I'm going to recuse and leave the room. I will just remind Marcy and Ed that there are 2 agreements here. If the board moves forward with the authorization of this contract for Norman to sign, they can execute them right now. And with that, I will leave.
Don't you have to authorize the Norman on
He's my deputy, so in my absence, I
I have the
nominate
stars.
Norman. I authorize
see a
Norman
badge on you.
He isn't dealing with the
as my deputy to take
Oh,
over
Sharon.
this one.
Oh, Sharon.
Hear that?
I'm gonna put in my.
He gets a badge. I
On
don't
that.
No, I'm not going to put it on. I just wanted to hear that it's, the tin badge. May I say something, or are you going to yell at me again?
I don't need to say a word. We're good. It's coming.
Does anybody have any comments they'd like to make? Anybody on the board about the LVPA contract?
Not at all.
No? No?
Is this the moment to discuss the?
Except for the dates, this is pretty much what we've had for years.
Disagreements over the lighting?
No.
Oh, okay. When did?
When we complete this resolved, when we get Cece's response.
Oh, we can't do anything until we get.
Right, we don't have the information to get to a conclusion.
Okay.
Okay. If there isn't any other discussion on it, then somebody needs to make a.
Can I just ask a question? Do we have any sense about when the Sissy's?
No. She's
Can
unable
we-
to tell us when it's going to be done.
Uh-huh.
I
Do
mean,
we have any
she's
say
working on it.
in when
Huh?
it's going to be done?
Yeah,
or-
she has a process that she is working
Uh-huh,
through.
okay. Again, I don't
And
wanna
she's got to
step on
get
anybody's
approvals
toes,
from
but I
boards
just-
and all that stuff.
I
but-
don't want it to be left hanging.
Oh,
That's the
that
only-
absolutely will not happen.
So, okay.
And she is bound and determined to get it done. So, if nobody else on the board has anything else to say, then we should either decide not to consider the contract, or somebody needs to make a motion that I should be able to sign it.
I'll make that motion, that you can sign the contract with the LVPA
Anybody want to second it?
We need a
For the
second.
2024.
for 2024. Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Do we have a second?
I can't second it.
I'm thinking.
Okay.
The reason I'm hesitating, and I'm not trying to speechify. Mr. Watson has concerns about the lighting, et cetera, and I think his argument, and I don't want to mischaracterize it, would be that we'd be better off not signing the contract until such time as there's some satisfactory resolution of the lighting question at the. I visited Mr. Watson's property the other night, and
I am recused, but I just want to advise that the lawyer has advised that we not get involved in anything that doesn't have to do with the town board, and I would strongly urge this conversation not to happen. And I'm going to go back into recusal. This is a building department enforcement issue. We have a ZEO. She is the only one authorized to work on this, and I would just highly suggest that we not go down an inappropriate.
I'm not, and I want to make it clear, and thank you, Tispia, I'm not looking to step on Sissy's. I have no expertise to make any judgments about what's with code or not code. So my only interest is trying to resolve this in a collegial and amicable way that addresses, that ensures that the LVPA is funded and serves the community, continues to serve the community as they had, but we recognize that in a plural community that there are issues, and we want to resolve those issues as amicably as is possible under the circumstances. So given that, I'm going to continue to raise my concerns, but given that, I will second the motion to sign the contract. So.
Okay, so we have the motion from John. We did get a second from Susan. Can I have an all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Deb is abstaining.
I can't vote, can I?
Yeah.
I can't vote.
Yes.
No, I said aye. So.
You can
Yeah.
vote.
Oh, okay.
Even when she abstains, like from certain things, she does vote. Like,
I have no idea.
well, I would, yes.
Okay. Can I vote?
Well, yeah, you're not abstained, I'm sorry.
No, I'm
I
not
take that
abstaining.
back. But
Yeah.
even when you make a motion for her to sign
Yeah.
something,
She still votes
she
aye.
still
Okay.
votes in
No,
the
that's
roll
fine.
call. Okay,
Yeah.
so we have an all in favor with everyone except Deb is abstaining.
Doesn't that require a roll call? What?
There's no money involved.
No?
Yeah, we're signing a contract for money, so.
We didn't do a contract, we didn't do a roll call on the Chatham Rescue.
Well, should we go back and do
I
that?
will-
Let's
I
do the
will
roll,
just
let's
gonna
do the
do
roll
the
call
roll
here,
call.
and
Do it
then,
just as an exercising portion.
My goodness, we absolutely will. So I have a motion from John to authorize Norman to sign the contract for LVPA services for 2024. Susan seconded. Councilmember Rasmussen.
yes.
Councilmember Gordon.
I agree with Susan. I'll say yes.
You changed from it, so you're all voting yes.
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer.
Yes.
Councilmember Tippecraft.
Yes.
Holy cow. Okay, sorry about that, guys.
Is there any-
Steve, would like to tell them.
We're gonna have an all yes.
Should we go back
Steve,
and do the
retail
second
distribution.
Chatham Rescue?
I mean, this is
Yeah, no, I understand that, yeah.
Generally speaking,
Yeah,
I was all in favor.
I depend
Roll
on
calls
you to
are
call, either
usually
call
for
on me
local
individually or
laws and
call on
money,
me.
but
Yes, anything financial has a roll call, so if we didn't do that for Chatham Rescue, we should go back.
we
and
did
do
it
that.
for the chargeback portion, but not for the
Yeah,
Chatham Rescue.
So the chargeback portion is where we're paying the money for Chatham Rescue?
Yes, I did a roll call there, but not for the contract.
I understand, because the LVPA, the contract is where we're spending the money. The Chatham Rescue, the chargeback is where we're spending the
okay.
money. So it's when it's financial that you want a roll call vote.
Would you gentlemen like to sign these?
I'll wait on that. There's two copies.
Did you bring in?
I brought mine, did you bring yours?
No, I'll go grab it right now. Sorry about that.
One signature required? Jeff, you got your rights. If he doesn't get to, there's going to be a revolution or something.
Are you going to frame this?
Yeah, I tried, but I'm not allowed. And the liver. If I'm not yours. That's fine. Yeah. It always is when I'm involved.
Really? I'm like, I'm not going to cause.
No, I know, I mean, I said, on personal stuff, so. And my
Okay, we had a request from the assessor to amend the job description for the assessor clerk to bring it to a level 4 instead of a level 5 due to added duties and increased responsibilities. So the town board talked about it and approved it. This is the job description that would get adopted. The part that I kind of took a stab at was the starting rate. So when I looked at level 4 and the starting rate, the range was, and this is after the COLA was applied for this year, which we'll get to next. 1622 was on the low end, 1730 was on the high end. The other clerical positions were between 1622 and 1700, i.e. the deputy court clerk, the PZ clerk, and then the assistant camp director, park building superintendent, more hands-on, 1730. So from my knowledge of the deputy court clerk, the assessor clerk, the PZ positions, what types of duties are assigned, The assessor clerk with these increased duties seem to be in line with the deputy court clerk as far as the duties and responsibilities. So that was what I went with, but it's open for the discussion if the board disagrees.
This is a starting position.
Well, this is the starting rate. So the current person in it is making higher than this, and that's actually another item for discussion.
I don't think it should.
So this is, if we were to get a brand new person in this position tomorrow, what would they start at? So the current proposed rate for the current person in this position is $17.60. But then also on this agenda item is, in the past, when we have increased a starting rate, because the job description or duties have changed, we have taken that existing person and raised their rate the same amount. So this raises the starting rate. Now we don't have to do that, but if we went with the $16.22 an hour for a starting rate, the current starting rate is $15.23. So the current person in this position started at that starting rate and has worked their way up to the $17.60 that is in the budget currently. If we wanted to apply the 99-cent increase to her rate as well, it would increase it to $18.59 an hour. So it's two different conversations. One, do we feel like $16.22 is a good starting rate if somebody brand new started tomorrow? With the increased responsibilities, it's 99 cents higher than the level 5 rate was, and it's on the low end of the level 4 starting rates. And then the second part of the conversation is the current person in the position, do we want to adjust her hourly rate accordingly, which is how we've done it, at least in the past 3.5 years I've been here. Like the park maintenance superintendent, I think we raised the starting rate. The planning zoning clerk, we raised the starting rate, and with each of those we had an existing person in the position and we brought them up with it. So those are the two. So let's start with the job description. Brand new person coming in, $16.22 an hour. Do we feel like that's a good starting rate for this new position?
Yeah, if you've added
Yes.
additional
Yeah, if it's-
responsibilities.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will make a motion to adopt the new job description for assessor clerk, moving it to a level 4 and moving the starting rate to $16.22 per hour and adding in the highlighted changes and adopt this job description as drafted.
I will second that.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yep.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yes.
Supervisor Holding?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
Councilmember Tipograph?
Yes.
Almost.
I was going to answer anyway, so.
So then the next question is the person in the position. This is a 5-hour-a-week position. If we took her rate and also increased it by the same 99 cents that we're increasing the starting rate, it would be a total increase of $307 for the year in the budget, and it would bring her from $17.60 an hour, which is her current proposed rate for 2024, to $18.59 an hour, which would give her that same 99-cent increase so that the rates were going up accordingly.
Is there a top, is there a point for each, I guess, for a level 4 employee, is there an upper limit?
The only positions that have upper limits are the ones in summer camp. Counselor, assistant director, and director, they get more for each year they're there. It's auto set as opposed to like the evaluation-based raises that we do. And it caps the counselor so it can never make more than an assistant director, and it caps the assistant director so they can never make more than a director. But other than that, each year that someone's in the position, the town board can do a COLA. If they do a COLA, it's to all the rates, including the starting rates, and they can do an evaluation-based raise. And then these starting rates are if that person leaves and a new person comes in, and that's why they increase with the COLA, because the COLA is about cost of living. So there's no cap. Somebody who's been here a really long time could get an evaluation-based raise every year. But that's up to each town board each year. So there's also no requirement to give evaluation-based raises or COLAs. So.
Yeah,
Everyone good?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm good. I'm good with it.
I will make a motion to increase, actually, you know what, we'll do this when we do the budget. We'll just adopt the budget with the changes, so I'm not going to motion right now, sorry. New York Main Street project update. Again, just kind of an overview for Susan and others. The town went out for a New York Main Street planning grant, phase 1. It is a 2-phase grant. Phase 1 is to create design guidelines for our target area. The target area has to be defined, and they want it to be a small, kind of central downtown area. Our target area is the 2022 corridor, which was a little larger than New York State wanted, but we argued that we are a rural community and we don't have I think the parameter said like a 3-block area. We don't really have 3 blocks. So it's the 2022 corridor. And phase 1, we hired Insight Architecture to work with us. We formed a town committee that is comprised of town board members, planning board members, zoning board members, CAC members, and business owners, especially in that downtown corridor, as well as business owners outside of that corridor. And we have been working with the architect on design guidelines. Phase 1 is creating those design guidelines. Phase 2 we can apply for next year, and that will be direct funding to businesses who want to participate, up to 75 cents on the dollar, and it can be up to $50,000 if they're just a commercial use, and they can get an additional up to $25,000 for each residential use that they have. So if they had commercial on the bottom with 2 apartments at the top, they could get up to $100,000 on a 75 cent to the dollar match. The town board doesn't have to approve these guidelines. These guidelines actually have to be submitted to the state by the end of November. So the committee is meeting for our final meeting this Thursday, I believe, this Thursday. Some of the things we still have to look at is the grading system. So when we go into phase 2, it's actually up to the town or a committee, which will likely be the same committee. Maybe we'll change it up a little, maybe we won't. That will get the applications in. We will be earmarked a certain amount of money and decide which projects get the funding based on this grading system. For example, do we want to give a lot of points towards things like increasing residential uses in our downtown, or do we want to focus more of our points on economic development, such as creating new jobs, those types of things. So essentially, the town board at this point, if they had anything that they saw in the guidelines that were sent out that was either a red flag or they wanted to shift the direction, otherwise the committee will continue to work with the architect and get it submitted to the state by November 30th, and then we will get reimbursed from New York State for the money that we paid out to Insight Architecture. So did the board have anything in the guidelines that they wanted to change, or? Okay. Well, no action is needed. I was really excited at some of the renderings. I don't know if you saw, they took some of the existing downtown businesses,
I looked at all the
especially the ones that want to participate. We reached out to every single property owner on that corridor. Some said no thank you, some didn't respond, the majority wanted to participate, and they took those buildings and they did renderings. It was very nice. Yeah. Okay. Walkable downtown grant application. The town board authorized Creighton Manning to apply for the grant on behalf of the town. We have a committee that's been working for quite some time, and the preliminary application has to be in the end of November. Then the DOT will look at it, and the state will look at it, and they will give us suggestions how to amend it to make our grant application stronger. And then it will get resubmitted. I did ask the engineer today or yesterday if the town's allowed to make changes between that pre-application in November and the final application, and the answer was yes. There are some things the town has to authorize tonight. One is authorizing me to issue a letter of intent, and the letter of intent states that we're committed to paying 100% of the project expenditures and then request reimbursement for 80% of the eligible project costs, and it would be capped at the amount awarded. There are some estimates of costs depending on what surface type we ultimately go with. Let me find them.
This is this one?
That is that. Yep. So there's some surface types that are more expensive in the beginning and have less maintenance. There are other that are less expensive in the beginning and have more maintenance. But the estimated 20-year cost from the engineer ranges between 2.3 and 2.75 million. So our take would be 20%. So you're talking, what is that, 460 to 520,000 that the town would pay. Well, no, actually, it's a little less because the maintenance cost is not built in there. The town board isn't deciding on surface type tonight. There's 2 more steps. We have to meet as a committee and make an official recommendation. We have not yet met and made that recommendation, although we have a meeting set. And we also have to find out from New York State DOT, not necessarily their preference, but if they are okay with us moving forward with any of the material types. Like, for example, stone dust is going to be the most environmentally friendly. It is also going to require the most maintenance over time, which the grant doesn't cover those maintenance costs, just the initial installation costs. Concrete, although a larger installation cost, doesn't have a replacement up to 40 years. So there's not that same, and your general maintenance is estimated $1,500, over that long period. So yeah, so basically 2 things. A letter of intent authorizing me to do that and approving the map. So one of the things that we heard a lot in the public input sessions was that it was really important that we included a connection to the high school. A lot of our high school students walk from school to downtown, and making sure that they have a safe way to do that. That the sidewalk proposed on the Midtown Mall side to go from the Midtown Mall down to where Berkshire Thrift used to be just doesn't make any sense. Nobody's going to be walking across Napa and the cornfield. And so the committee decided to shorten that side and really just go from Roaring Twenties to Midtown Mall. And then you can cross over at Midtown Mall and walk the other side all the way down to the high school. And also to make sure that the other side goes past the library to the old Deb's Sheer Perfection, to the new furniture shop that's going in there. So first, let's talk about that. Does the town board have any input on the map as proposed by the committee and the engineer, which is based a lot on the public input that we received, which was, if we're going to do this project, make it as small and as inexpensive as possible to create a nice walkable downtown. The crosswalks are important, slowing traffic is important, but let's not, start with this giant $5 million project. So we're looking at half of that, 2.3 to 2.7 million, and a smaller kind of walkable corridor basically from the plazas to Roaring Twenties, where you can cross across and sidewalks on both sides, and then really from Valley Plaza to the high school just on that one side of the road. Also eliminating that multi-use path. That was going to be a more expensive option. It seemed like the public input sessions were kind of take it or leave it. Who's really going to get on their bikes to bike for a half a mile? It's not really creating a bike path because it's so short. And it's going to be much less expensive to just stick to a sidewalk on both sides versus a multi-use path. So essentially the committee worked with what we heard at the last public input session, which was it's important for high school students to walk safely. Please keep it as inexpensive as possible. Please keep it to just sidewalks and make a nice crossable, walkable, real condensed area, and then a path to the high school. So questions from the town board on the map?
Not on the map, no.
No, not on the map.
Okay. So I will make a motion to approve the proposed map as drafted in its final format sent to the town board.
I'll second that.
On Thursday or Friday.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Okay. And then the second, well, Norman, you said not on that. Do you have a question on something else?
Yeah, well, part of it is the timing of it. So
Okay.
do we have any information about, once we request them to reimburse 80%, is that likely to happen in 30 days or 30 years? Do we know?
So we did ask that of the engineer, and he said, depending on when you put it in, how busy the state is, it could be reimbursed in a month, it could be reimbursed in 3 months. It's not going to be years, but
Okay, so tolerable interest expenses that will be, because
Yeah.
clearly we're going to be out some money for a period of time.
right. But it's not going to. We won't need to bond the 80%. It will be enough that we have in our fund balance and other places to pay it, and then get reimbursed because it's not the 2.5 million is not going to all come in at once. It's going to be phased out over the engineering phase, the construction
Well, I
phase.
mean, the bills are not going to come in all at once. Right?
Exactly.
Part of that then, so we, with the letter of intent, we commit to paying 100% and asking for reimbursement for 80% up to the limit of whatever grant they give us.
Right. Whatever project cost we put in.
Well, so if we put in a project cost of, let's just, costs always go up a little, never down, so let's call it $3 million.
Okay.
And are they likely then to approve a grant not of 80% of $3 million, but they just say, well, no, we think $1 million is enough. So they approve a grant of $1 million.
So what the engineer was saying, and other committee members, please chime in if you had a different interpretation, was that DOT is going to try to fund as many projects as possible. So by not going to the 5 million max and going to a smaller project like a 2.5 million, we are more likely to get chosen. But if we get chosen, it will be at the cost that we submitted, because that's what it costs to do the project. So they're not going to come in and be like, you want 2.7, we'll give you $1 million, what are you going to do with it? But they will choose projects based on, hey, we can choose 5 $2.5 million projects or only 2 $5 million projects, so we're going to go with the 5
Okay,
$2.5
so
million.
there isn't going to be any partial award, it's all or nothing.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you guys had that same understanding when we talked about why going for a smaller. Yeah.
And we apply for the grant after we have all of the confirmed bids, or just based on estimates?
I'd ask that the audience not have conversation when the town board's trying to discuss. I'm sorry.
What's the timing of, for example, so the question is, do we do our grant application after we have confirmed and accepted proposals from all the vendors involved?
No.
Or do we say, we think it's going to cost 2.7 to 3 million, give us the grant, and then as we get into the process, we discover it's actually 4 million. They've already awarded the grant, but it's cost more. So how does that timing work? I'm just trying to make sure that we don't get into a point where we're on the hook to do a project, but then discover we don't have the money to do what it then costs.
So,
because this is going to go out a few years, as I recall.
yeah, it's phased. So phase 1 is the actual engineering. So right now they're doing like preliminary engineering. So phase 1 is getting that actual engineering. I'm going to assume, I didn't ask that question exactly, but during that phase is when you actually go out to bid with the contractors. I can definitively say we are not going out to bid on the construction of the project for this first initial grant application, because until we have those engineered drawings, which is what the first part of the grant money covers, we won't be able to go out to bid to a contractor until we have those designs.
Okay. So it's reasonably cautious, but does leave it hanging out in front of us the possibility. Forgive me for saying it, but at least this way it's all clear that we have another splash pad where we start thinking it's 75 and we end up that it's 300. Except now we're in millions, not in thousands. That's my concern is that we get into the project with commitments made to the grantor in particular that we're going to do this, but then discover that it actually takes another $1 million that they're not giving us and we don't have.
Well, is it correct to think that we don't start paying, we don't accept the bids and start the work until we've gotten an assurance from the state that it's been approved and they're going to give us 80%?
Yes.
Okay.
And they award these bids, these grants all the time based on an engineer's proposal of what they think it's going to cost. We could certainly ask Creighton Manning at our next meeting, which I think is next week. What happens if when we get to the bid phase, it's much higher. I'm going to guess the state has something built into that, or maybe at that point we have to say, okay, we're going to cut out these 500 feet of the sidewalk because for the same 2.7 million, now we're only going to get 300 feet versus the 400 we were hoping for, would be my guess.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right.
Other questions from the town board?
No, this is a lot of money, obviously, but I've tried to speak to lots of people in the town from a variety of, and everybody seems to raise the same concern about economic development. And I've thought about what we need to do in the town to make economic development happen, and this seems like something that will do that. And again, I appreciate there's always a certain amount of risk, but I do this not for the beauty of it, but because I think it'll help bring business and jobs and development to the community.
I will say the vast majority of business owners, especially on that corridor, are very supportive. We actually have 2 local business owners on the committee that are very involved and supportive. So again, we're not going to decide on a surface type. I think we can, well, first let's do the letter of intent. Does somebody want to make a motion giving the authorization? Let me just read it because it was specific wording. Hang on. Authorizing me to issue a letter of intent stating that we are committed to paying 100% of project expenditures, then request reimbursement for 80% of eligible project costs capped at the amount awarded.
I will make such a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Roll call. Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yep.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yes.
Supervisor Hoagland?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
Councilmember Tipograph?
Yes.
And then on the surface type, there's a couple options. Like I said, that initial application has to be in the end of November. The town board won't meet again unless we want to have a special meeting. It can be modified from the initial November to the later one. I'm kind of the mind, and it's up to the town board. Deb and I are both on the committee, that we kind of just authorize the committee to work with the engineer and DOT to decide on a surface type that makes the most sense, or we can say that we either hold a special meeting before the end of November, or that we, decide later after that initial application.
What does DOT have to say? I mean, what is their contribution to the discussion?
All of the proposed sidewalks are in their right of way, so
Right.
they have to approve it. So they might say, no, stone dust is not an option. They might not. They might say, yeah, any of those 3 are an option. But they might say, because the engineers are leery because they've never seen a project like this be stone dust. They've seen asphalt and they've seen concrete. So they want me to check with DOT because they're not so sure that DOT has to agree to the whole project. They have to agree with where the crosswalks are, all of that. So for surface type, if DOT says no, it may not be stone dust, well, then we're down to 2 options, right? So it's not, the way I'm going to ask them is not what would you prefer, because as Josh brought up, they're going to say we prefer concrete, right? Because concrete is easier. But I'm going to phrase the question, we are looking at 3 potential different surface types in your right-of-way. Would you be supportive of any of the 3? And if they say, sure, whatever you guys decide, then the committee and the engineer can make a decision, or we can bring it back to the town board. But I don't have that opinion from DOT yet. So what does the board feel?
In terms of
Plus the
making
committee.
a decision about
Well,
it?
either deferring the decision to the committee,
Yeah.
or bringing it back to the town board either before the end of November or after and before the next phase.
I would vote to defer it to the committee. I mean, other than like making it look like the Yellow Brick Road, I would not know the difference between dust and concrete. I mean, I'm not qualified, so I'll defer it to the people who are qualified to make that decision. So.
Well, I don't know that any of us committee members are qualified either. I will say we are deferring also to the engineer
okay.
who,
Yes.
who thinks
Yes.
stone dust might not be the best option, but wants to hear from DOT. But again, unless the town board says, oh, heck no, we can't do asphalt, then I'm comfortable deferring to the committee and the engineer.
Yeah.
If the town board is like, asphalt is out of the question, I don't want to see anything asphalt in town, then we should talk about that now, because then we're going to take that off the table.
I'd really rather not see asphalt. That's just a personal preference.
Well, do we Do we want to make that, I would rather than have it come back to us once the committee decides or makes a recommendation and we can approve it or not approve it based on the money question. So, because I know, as I said, yes, I would prefer the Yellow Brick Road, but again,
Well, I
it's
mean,
not on the.
we could have a special meeting. I don't know that it would be more than 10. Norman's shaking his head. No, thank you. Well, and you are on the, Deb, you are on the committee. So if you're.
No, I'm not on the walkable downtown committee.
Oh.
Would you like
Then we don't care what you think.
Why did I think you were on that committee? Okay, well, never mind then. Oh, Britt is still. Okay.
You mean Britt or Susan? I mean, let's get straight.
No, Britt is somebody else. She's talking about Mary.
No, you're Britt. She's Mariana.
Oh, damn. Well, I'm definitely not on the committee, so it's got to be her.
Okay, so we are meeting for Walkable Downtown on November 22nd. The initial grant application has to be in on the 27th. It doesn't leave a lot of time. What if we defer it to the committee, knowing that the town board can ultimately, once that initial one goes in, I already asked the engineer, can we make modifications to that before submitting the final? And he said yes. So if that initial one goes in and the committee said we're going asphalt and the town board's like, heck no, then we could certainly modify it after.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah? Yes. Okay. So I will make a motion authorizing the Walkable Downtown Committee to decide on a surface type for the initial grant application due the end of November, with the town board to discuss further in December regarding their choice.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Rasmussen.
Yep.
Councilmember Gordon.
Yes.
Supervisor Holmes.
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer.
Yes.
Councilmember Tipcraft.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all. All right, policy review. So we currently have a compensation policy. We have spoken in depth about changing it, as Norman has so kindly edited for us, to be a performance management policy. Essentially, a lot of what he did was he took what was in kind of the training of the evaluation process and incorporated it into the policy versus just some PowerPoint that the employees watch. I highlighted in yellow all of the changes. There is one more change that I caught today when I was updating the job descriptions, which is that the SYP Camp Director Seasonal is still listed as a salary. It is not a salary, so I'm just changing that 10,815 to 2163 an hour. Pop that out and put that hourly amount into that box. 2163 an hour. Other than that, we did add in the park manager, which is a new position that was created, and the community center coordinator, both at a level 3. The park manager already had a job description. The community center coordinator, I created a job description based on the advertisement that went out for that position. It listed what the job duties were, so I essentially just took them and pasted them into a job description, which I shared with the town board. So my first question is, any questions from the town board on the policy?
No.
Okay. The policy does have some addendums. One is the chart of who does evaluations for whom, and there were a few changes to that. One was adding the park manager in to be evaluated by the town supervisor and town board liaison for the park, and the other was taking the CEO and ZEO out of the evaluation of the PZ clerk, because it's no longer the building, planning, and zoning clerk, it's just the planning zoning clerk. So that evaluation is now done just by the planning board and planning board chair and ZBA chair. The actual performance evaluation form has no edits. I didn't get any feedback from anyone in the town after doing evaluations that they thought anything should be edited on that form. And then the job descriptions, I simply took and added in the new starting rates based on this policy. There were two that stuck out as I was adding in those starting rates. One is the PZ clerk is still a job description for building, planning, zoning clerk. So Sissy is going to work on a modified job description that can come to us in January or in December. And also, we had taken the bookkeeper job duties into a separate position. We are now putting that back into the supervisor position. So I essentially need to take the bookkeeper job description and the supervisor job description and combine them. So if the board is comfortable moving forward with the policy tonight with all of the job descriptions edited with just that starting rate being edited, those two I will get to us for December to actually adopt as new job descriptions.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Any questions from anyone on the town board? No. I will move the resolution as amended.
Second.
Excuse me, Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yep.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yes.
Supervisor Holtman?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
Councilmember Chippegraff?
Yes.
All right. So that adopts the new policy as well as the 3 addendums, which does include all the job descriptions with the updated hourly starting rate, and I can send all those to you. They don't need to go in the minutes, but just for your files. And then I will get those 2 new job descriptions, which is PZ, clerk, and supervisor with bookkeeper duties for next month. Okay. Oh, you know what? I should have done this I shouldn't have done it in the same motion because that was a resolution. So I will now make a motion to adopt the community center coordinator job description as drafted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
All right, charge point invoice. So for the EV charging station, we had a grant that covered the cost for the first 2 years. And there were costs that we didn't know were there until we got the invoice. Steve did try, thank you, Steve, to get them to waive those charges this year because we didn't budget for them. That was a hard no. So 2 things. Again, we didn't get an answer from them in time to put a voucher in so that this payment is not really late. I'm hoping that the town board might authorize me to pay it on an interim basis. Let me see where we can pull the money from, probably contingent.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
You can.
The bill is for what period of time? Like
1 year.
Okay, so presumably at the end of 2024, we're going to get
Right.
another bill. And my other question is, when people use it, do they have to pay or is it free?
Yeah, so it was free when the grant money was covering it, and the grant was covering all the fees and the electricity. We did a fee scale that we started implementing for users. However, we did not incorporate these fees. When we figured out the fee schedule, we looked basically at the electricity usage. We already got an email from a resident saying, hey, you forgot about the plowing costs because we contract with someone to plow it. So I put that back on the CSC's radar to reevaluate those charging scales. This $13.20 a year, if we wanted it to be neutral where the taxpayers weren't paying for the charging station but rather the users were paying what it actually cost to run it, we would need to incorporate the $13.20. But we need a little data. We have to look at, so if we have 100 vehicles charging their cars and it's $13.20, then each one has to pay $13 every time they charge their car.
And does that money go to us or does it go to the company?
It comes into our bank account.
Okay.
And then we have a revenue line,
Okay.
which is those fees that the person pays, and then we have an expenditure line right now just to pay the electricity. But that's another question is, do we want to add into that EV expenditure line for this annual fee, which will come again in '24? And then look at the charging fee schedule to kind of adjust it accordingly.
Yeah, I would opt for that because I think it's important to have a charging station because so many people have electric vehicles and we want to attract people. We want to have a place that people can charge their cars. So I would.
But I do think it's important, again, with the grant in the beginning, it was great because the state was paying for it.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important that whatever it costs us to run the charging station between the electricity and the annual fees, that we're charging accordingly.
Yes.
That said, we have to make sure that we have enough traffic, because, $13.20 is a large annual bill.
Right.
Are we getting enough traffic? Because if you only had 100 users throughout the year, you're talking $13.20. No. Am I doing the math right there? $13.20. Hang on before I say that. I might be... Yeah, $13.20 a person, plus the electricity. Nobody's going to come to our charging station to charge, because that's... Right,
Yeah,
so
no.
one thing we already talked about was the committee taking a new look at it with plowing and where the usage is at. But basically tonight, we'd have to pay this, which covers November of 23 through November of 24, and then potentially add to the budget for next year to pay from November of 24 to November of 25.
Yes.
All right, so the first question is, will the town board authorize me to pay the $13.20 and prepare a budget amendment out of contingency to pay this bill? Yes. Does someone want to make that motion?
I will make a motion to authorize History to pay this voucher. And
Second.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yep.
Councilmember Gordon?
yes.
Supervisor Holtway?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
Councilmember Tipograph?
Yes.
And then again, we won't actually vote on it till the budget adoption, but do we want to add the same $13.20 into 24's budget to pay that next annual fee?
Do we want to add that, or is it likely going to go up and we should, maybe do $1,500 and then we'll have leftover and we can all eat Kinder cookies?
Ginger cookies. Budget amendments are there for if, they didn't indicate that it was going to go up.
Okay.
We did actually ask them about next year. They said we want a budget for next year, and if they were planning on increasing their cost, I would hope they'd be like, hey, but let's say it goes to $1,500, that board can budget amend
No problem. That
the
makes
180.
sense.
So yes to that?
Yeah.
All right, so 13.20. All right. No. They did a motion just to authorize it.
Right, but
But we'll do
that's
that
in the
with the
budget
budget,
thing.
yeah.
The other one?
All right, Columbia County Climate Smart Task Force. We have our fearless Steve Powers, not only leading our task force here in New Lebanon, but also as the member for New Lebanon at the county task force. It's really nice having him there because he has such knowledge through what the town has done that he is often looked to for advice and guidance on best practices. So this is similar to the environmental management appointment. It's an appointment made by the county, but they asked the town for a motion recommending the appointment. Any questions from the town board?
No.
All right, I will make a motion to recommend that the county appoint Steve Powers to a 2-year term on the Columbia County Climate Smart Task Force starting January 1st, 2024.
First time hearing about
I'll
it.
second.
They didn't send you this?
No.
Oh, wait, time out. Steve, would you like to continue on the county task force?
Can I think about it for a couple of months?
No?
months.
No,
Yes.
You have until...
I guess to me it was a no-brainer. I mean,
Well, what about Bruce? Bruce is on it as well.
They want you.
Isn't he the
They've
EMC?
decided.
Isn't his EMC?
And what about you? You're on it as well.
I am a non-voting supervisor,
Yeah.
and I believe, hang on, the memo does say that we're represented by you and Bruce. It says you expressed interest in being considered for reappointment.
Aha.
The term expires here.
Isn't it a
Truth
fact,
comes
Mr.
out.
Powers, that you...
Yeah, right.
Okay, so
Yeah, right.
So, Steve, we did at the county talk about how it had become a little unwieldy to have so many members, and that moving forward we were going to have one representative per town, but we weren't going to kick anybody off, so we were going to do that when reappointments came around.
So Bruce is kicked off, in effect.
No.
He can come, but he just
Does
has-
his term...
He has no
It
power.
doesn't say anything about Bruce's term. I'll have to find out about that.
Okay.
Are we holding off on this motion?
No.
And it's out of the
I mean, either way, you want to be reappointed, right? I'll find out about Bruce. Okay.
So I think we have a motion and a second.
Good point.
I don't hear who had a second.
Did somebody
I
second it?
second.
No.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a Thursday morning.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Do I get a vote?
No.
You have to run for town board. Will you bake us cookies?
Gluten-free, she'll make them.
No, we don't want any of those.
Do I
Okay.
have to do anything about for an oath for him for county?
I'll find out. We'll send it to them that we did it, and I don't know. Remember kind of the snafu with Bruce's thing?
Yeah.
Environmental maintenance. So I don't
Okay.
Okay, so when I became supervisor in the past, the town had just kind of reappointed whoever was up for reappointment, whether it was the planning board, the zoning board, the CAC. If you were in there and you wanted to be reappointed, you got reappointed. We heard from a lot of community members that there were boards where they might want to serve and there was never a vacancy to do so. So the board implemented a new policy where we went out for letters of interest. Obviously, if the incumbent who's there getting reappointed wants to stay, they should certainly put a letter of interest in. We interview everyone who applies and then choose. What we will typically do is invite the 3 incoming town board members into those interviews because the appointment has to be made at our organizational meeting right at the beginning of January. But obviously we need to interview like in December. So we will probably do interviews inviting the 3 of you in, knowing that you will be part of making the appointment to decide how to do that organizational meeting. So, quick question, Marcy. I asked you to check if I had the most recent version, my 4/19/23.
I mean,
Was
there,
that the
there
most-
is an updated, but I couldn't print it for you today because of the problem with printer, but you've got the expirations right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So you have Brutch on the planning board, so that's going to be your chair plus your...
Well, chairs get appointed separately. I have a different process for that. But yeah.
She's
So,
up. Stoller on the ZBA.
yep.
You've got
CAC, I have
Peg,
4.
O'Neill, Monica, in a vacant spot.
Yep.
Your ethics was Wash.
Yep. Do we still have that vacancy for Mercedago, or did someone go?
No, that's Beth Steffens.
Then stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I think that's. Oh, and Rep Commission was the vacant. We have 2 vacancies still on the Rep Commission, and it's one of the vacant ones. Yeah. So hopefully we get some letters of interest for the CAC and the Rep Commission in addition to anyone that's a current incumbent. All right.
Can you tell us who needs to send the letters in?
I will email everybody. Yep. So for this, it's basically what I have, Mars agree with me is, or disagree, 1 planning board, 1 ZBA, 4 CAC, 1 ethics, 1 rec commission. Yeah?
Yeah, that's what I saw.
Okay.
Yep.
And if the board appoints going out for letters of interest and when they're due, I will then reach out to each incumbent and let them know that their position's up for reappointment. Would they like to be reappointed? If so, please submit a letter of interest to Marcy and that we will schedule interviews. Okay. So my first question is, I don't know, Steve and Liz, do you have calendars with you? Okay. So I think the first, before I make a motion to go out for letters of interest, can we look at when we want to do interviews? And I know that 3 of you are not going to be on the reappointing board, but I need at least 1 of you to show up for interviews so that we have a quorum of the current town board to hold the interviews.
This is for December?
December, yeah. We don't usually do it at the same time as the 12th meeting because this meeting could take, if we, that right there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 positions. So even if you just get the incumbents reapplying, that's,
What are you looking for? You have a meeting already scheduled on the 28th for the year end,
That's the year end, yep. I'm looking for when to interview.
And you
So,
have to actually have a meeting, right? A special meeting
Yep.
for this.
so what does the week of the 18th look like for everyone? So the town board meeting is the 12th and the year end meeting is the 28th. So we could do this special meeting the week of the 18th.
I could do it in the afternoon of the 21st or any time during the day on the 22nd.
Okay. Which one of you 3 is going to be our committed person? Norman's out, so Deb or John?
I can do it.
Deb, are you going to come too?
Or I'll
I know
certainly
you're
do
not
it.
coming to this meeting.
Norman said he was going.
I never said that.
I can let
It's a
somebody
different
know
meeting.
by tomorrow when I check my calendar.
All right.
You know,
21st or
I have plenty of help up
22nd?
here. I don't need your help from the peanut gallery.
Deb and or John.
21st or 22nd?
21st in the afternoon, though.
What
It would
day
have
of the
to be
week?
afternoon.
Thursday or Friday. Thursday would have to be evening because it's a court.
Oh, okay.
22nd could be any time.
Probably the
Or it could be during
We're
the
closed
day.
to the public.
Depending, because there could be. We're not close to the public.
You don't
Me,
usually close right before?
Christmas. So town holidays are Christmas and New Year.
No.
Oh, I thought you said it was a town holiday.
My office always, we shut down for about a week or so, the town hall, to the public.
I could do it on the
Okay,
18th also
we
in
could
the
schedule it.
afternoon.
I could do it.
I could do it on the 18th in the afternoon also.
Okay.
I have a doctor's appointment in the
I could
morning.
do. Day of the week is
that?
Monday.
Monday.
Liz and Steve, what do the 18th
Afternoon.
afternoon, 21st
Afternoon.
afternoon, or 22nd anytime
Anytime.
look like for you?
18th, I'm not here.
Okay.
21st afternoon would probably be best.
Yeah, I think.
It would have to be early afternoon because court starts at
Oh.
Fine.
4, 5.
Well, it starts at 4, isn't it the early, it's the second or the third or
Second
fourth?
and fourth is the DA night.
Oh, okay.
But Jess starts at one time, Jack starts at a different time.
One starts at 4, one starts
All
at...
we're doing is calling the meeting to order and going into an executive session. So we really would need to have all of this
No.
to interfere with court, so
No.
that would be fine.
I mean, we could even interview in we could even go up to my office.
Yeah,
Right.
You know, we'd have to be here to call it to
Call it
order
to
and
order.
adjourn, but.
that's fine, whatever amongst those dates
Okay.
are good.
I think I'm okay. I would let people know, but name the date now.
Yeah, and obviously we have to check with the people interviewing too.
Right.
Some people might work, and so during the day might not work, but we could at least start with that.
Yeah, I'm just down in the city on the 19th and 20th to my grandkids.
So you want to do like the 21st at 1 p.m., 2 p.m.?
Either one of those is fine for me.
June the 20th.
Liz, Steve?
Sure.
That's what I will check.
So what was that, 1?
1 p.m. on the 21st. And then we can see if there's other people that can't make it at that time. We could do some interviews at the year-end meeting on the 28th.
Okay.
If there was a couple that couldn't do that.
So special meeting 1 p.m. on 12/21 Thursday.
Yes.
Are you going to make a motion
Yes.
to notice it?
So I'll make a motion that we go out for letters of interest for 1 planning board spot, 1 ZBA spot, 4 CAC spots, 1 ethics board spot, 1 recreation commission spot, with letters of interest due to the town clerk's office by 4 p.m. on Monday the 18th, and a special meeting for interviews to be scheduled on the 21st at 1 p.m. and ask that the town clerk advertise the special meeting appropriately.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
And we'll put in the ad for letters of interest that interviews will be held on the 21st at 1 p.m. And if that doesn't work for them, that we can make other arrangements or something. Okay.
So other committee members, you're just going to send out a letter asking them
Yep.
whether they want to retain their position?
Yes.
You do that, right?
So she does the notice to the public, and then I usually reach out to the incumbents and say, hey, would you like to be reappointed? If so, let me know, and then we'll schedule an interview with the incumbent plus anyone else that might.
So if somebody says no, then you're going to need another...
Well, we're going out for public letters of interest.
So there may be multiple people
So
who
if
want
the
the same
incumbent,
position.
there could be the incumbent could say yes, and we could get 3 new people that say yes, and then the board interviews all of them. And obviously, the incumbent has some advantages, right, to knowing the board, having served on the board. But there were boards that never had a vacancy because the incumbent just kept wanting to be reappointed, and sometimes it's good to have change and variety and different perspectives, and maybe a town board has a different direction that they're moving in, that the board members, because you have to remember, like the planning board and ZBA especially, they're autonomous. The town board has we can't say to the planning board how they should decide, what they should decide, and so that's an important appointment. And so there might be a planning board member that in the past would just get reappointed because they were the incumbent and they wanted to be reappointed. Now it just gives the town board the option. Yes.
We also have at least one vacancy on the CAC. I'll remind you of that when I write, because maybe we'll get someone new.
Well, there is a vacancy on the CAC,
Yeah.
but it's not going to make any difference in the process.
Oh, okay.
We're putting out for public letters of interest
Okay,
for
somebody from the
4
public.
CAC spots.
Okay. All right.
So,
Okay.
Yes. Good. All right. 2024 budget. So we voted on, I think, 4 changes at the public hearing, and they were to increase the 1010.4 to $1,000 for training, to increase the 1410.4 to $5,460 for training, to increase the general health insurance line to $56,878 for the incoming highway superintendent to have a family plan, and to increase the highway health insurance line to $75,408 to allow the outgoing highway superintendent to remain on the town's health insurance and stay on as a part-time, as-needed employee. What that did to keep the amount to be raised by taxes the same is it took the unexpended from $304,146 to $321,948, which is still in line if you look at all the past years, which is on the back of that budget. It's still in line with amounts that have been pulled. The other 2 changes that we talked about today are 1320 and I think it was 370. Hang on. 307. So that would be another 1627. So 321,948 plus 1627. So that total unallocated to keep amount to be raised by taxes the same is 323,575. The assessor clerk line, hang on, I just have to find everything. Goes from 5456 plus 307 to 5763. And then the EV charging station, I think it's under the CSC budget, right, Steve?
Yeah.
$8797.41, so 1320 plus the 400 there, 1720. I will go over all of this in my motion, but if the board hears anything that sounds off, just let me know. And then on the salary page, assessor clerk, 5456 plus 307, 5763, and the assessor clerk hourly, 1760 plus 91 cents. Okay, so I am going to make a motion to adopt the 2024 final budget as the 2024 preliminary budget with the following changes. On page 1, the unexpended balance will go from 304,146 to 323,575. On page 1 of general appropriations, A 1010.4 will go from 500 to 1,000. On page 2 of general appropriations, A 1355.11 will go from 5456 to 5763. On page 3 of general fund appropriations, A 1410.4 will go from 5,060 to 5,460. On page 14 of general fund appropriations, A8797.41 will go from $400 to $1,720. Page 15 of general fund appropriations will go from $51,000 to $56,878. On page 3 of highway appropriations, DA 9060.8 will go from $64,384 to $75,408. On page 1 of the schedule of salaries, the assessor clerk will go from $54.56 to $57.63. And page 2 of salaries, the hourly rate for assessor's clerk will go from $17.60 to $18.59. And my motion is to adopt the final 2024 budget with the preliminary budget as amended.
And I will second that motion.
Hang on one second, let me just count. Did you take notes of all that? 1, 2, 3. Just before we vote on it. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total. All right, hang on. Sorry. 1, I just want to make sure that we're doing on the spot. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, page 1, unexpended. Page 2, 1010. Not 11, 10.
Okay.
1355.11. 1410.4.
Page 4.
56.
You have the 8797?
8797.41. Yep, 1720 to 56,878. Okay, yep, thank you.
Right?
Yep.
We got them all?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so Tiff made the motion to approve it as amended. Susan seconded. Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yep.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yes.
Supervisor Holdley?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
And Councilmember Tippecraft?
Yes.
All right, I will get you a final budget because you need to send the 2 certified copies tomorrow in the mail to the county clerk.
Okay.
I sent you that email with all the instructions. But she needs the signed sealed versions. She needs 2 of them. So I will get you that final one as well as to put in all your boxes. Okay. Whew.
Well, hey.
Upcoming announcements. We have a regular monthly meeting on Tuesday, December 12th.
Before that, you have the 2 public hearings?
Yes. At 7:30 p.m. And on that same night, we have a public hearing at 7:20 and a public hearing at 7:25 on intra-local law 8 and 9. We now have a special meeting on December 21st for interviews. And then we have a year-end meeting on December 28th at 2 p.m. 2 public hearings, 7:20 and 7:25. All right. Whew. Privilege of the floor. Yes, Meg.
I have a suggestion about the EV stations.
Okay.
Several years ago, I had emailed the Stewarts Corporation with some suggestions that they install EV stations in the back, because there's one outside of Hudson before the Rip Van Winkle Bridge that has about 6 EV stations off to the side, and they're heavily used, obviously, because it's in a high-traffic area, but I had made the suggestion that they install EV stations there, so it would be on them, financially to manage the whole thing, which I think they could probably better do than putting it on the town. And encourage them, because I suggested it would be a great way people could charge their car and then go around town and do their business and all this. And I got a very positive response back, but that was the end of it. The woman said, "Don't pass this on to whoever she's going to pass it on to." But so they do know that. You could, reach out and email them again and say, "Have you considered that? It's been 5 years to consider that."
Yeah.
But it would be, I think, much more beneficial and encouraging for people who had even hybrid cars to just kind of, charge it up while they're going around town doing business or sitting in Stewart's and having coffee and whatever. Just, that would be a suggestion to maybe try that.
Absolutely. And Stewart's was actually on our list before we put the EV charging station where it is now. We really wanted a downtown location.
Yeah.
So LVPA, Jimmy D's,
Right.
Stewart's. They felt at the time that their parking was really limited, and they actually didn't want somebody parking there for more than 2 to 5 minutes to run in and grab a coffee and come back out. I don't know the Hudson location. Do they have more parking than this one?
Well, they've actually built a separate parking
area
lot next to it.
Got it.
And there are about 5 or 6 spots. But I had suggested to this person that I was communicating with to have them in the back. Out near their dumpster, because there's no people go out and they walk their dogs, and that's about it.
Yep.
And there are other, like in Clinton Corners, the Stewart's there has like a multiple charging machine, in the back.
Yeah.
So
And they can
That's what
afford the
that's what I'm
level
saying.
3.
They have
which
about
is nice.
6 stations there, so
Right.
even if they put in 3, there is room in the back, and I think I had made that point because I know the whole parking lot itself there is so busy, cars in and out, and then sometimes people don't even use the right exit to pull in, but to have it in a safe spot so they wouldn't be taking up potential customers that would just be running in to get, whatever they need to get.
We can definitely revisit the conversation. The nice thing about Stewart's is they can afford the quick chargers, whereas ours is not
Exactly,
the
that's
fast charger. Yeah. Liz, you had your hand raised?
Oh, I was just going to say, the Clinton Corners is,
Yeah.
Tesla did that. That wasn't Stewart's.
Uh-huh.
Stewart's gave them the proproperty.
Uh-huh.
Because
But
Bill
I've known
Bill
people-
Dank owns a Tesla and goes
I've
to the
known
city.
people who even have Tesla who use there also.
Hey,
so-
you have an in with Stewart's because Darcy does all the work with Stewart's. Do you want to put a little bug in their ear?
I don't think there's enough property in New Lebanon.
That was their initial response when I inquired before,
I
was
think that
that
would
they
be their
just
response.
didn't have enough spots. But Ed, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, I just got your email about the insurance form, that's fine.
Yeah.
And getting you in at 10 o'clock is no problem for your
Oh,
wellness.
thank you for reminding me to announce that. How did I forget that? The Quality of Life Committee is holding a health and wellness event at the LVPA on December 10th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. It is to highlight the new wellness center and pharmacy that is coming to the Tilden Plaza in spring. They'll have a table there with information on who they are and possibly some of the products that they have to vend. A organization that offers free acupuncture that will be coming to the Wellness Center on a monthly basis will be there offering free acupuncture in the ear. Columbia County Mental Health will be there, as well as the mental... I'm not going to get it right. There's a few different county organizations that are coming regarding mental health and addiction services. We are offering it for free to any healthcare provider or organization to either come and table with information about who they are and what they offer for services, but also for organizations to vend. So if you know of any massage therapists that want to come and set up a chair and offer 10-minute chair massages for, $10, $20, whatever the rate is, or make natural healthcare products and want to come and sell their products. It's free of charge for anyone to vend. It's free of charge for everyone to attend. And really the only money you would spend is if you chose to purchase something from the vendors. Health and wellness access in New Lebanon is one of the things that rated really high on what the community wanted to see more of. And so the Quality of Life Committee has been working on both housing and healthcare access. And so this is a good way for us to highlight some of the current organizations that are available that people can access healthcare, mental health support, physical health support, all different types, as well as just a nice community event to come together. So if you know of anyone that wants to set up a table or vend, please have them reach out to me or Sharon. And please, everybody, come and spread the word. It would be great to have a lot of people there. And there's a lot of county services through the Healthcare Consortium and mental health that New Lebanon residents don't know are there. And they're free to access. And so thanks for that reminder, Ed. And I did send you the insurance. December 10th, it's a Sunday, and it'll be 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
I assume this will go up on the Facebook page and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
Yes.
Put that in the paper.
Oh, that's a good idea. You know what? I will get the write a story on it. Yeah, that's a good idea. Hey, Sharon, remind me, Marcy said you could get that in the paper. Remind me to write a press release and send it out to all the newspapers. Our incoming highway superintendent.
Hello.
Pete.
I have a question about the pharmacy.
Yeah.
What happens if they don't raise enough money?
Good question. So in Phoenicia, they recently opened the first not-for-profit pharmacy in the nation. And in order to open their doors, they needed something like $250,000. So they went ahead and opened their doors. But really, to get through kind of the in the red operating, because they're a not-for-profit pharmacy, they really needed closer to $500,000. The lesson they learned there is once they were in town operating as a pharmacy, people didn't find the need as much to donate or fundraise because they already had access. And so the goal here is to actually get to the $500,000 to $600,000 before they open their doors. It's not going to be from donations from all of you, right? Like we might make small donations, which is great. We're working on accessing SAM funding, grant funding, the Columbia County organizations such as the Chamber of Commerce and the CEDC are looking at accessing larger foundation support. So, right now we're just saying, yes, we're going to hit those fundraising goals and they're going to open, but they would have to take a serious look at their budget and whether they could open if they don't hit those fundraising goals. But again, we're not looking to New Lebanon residents to raise $600,000. Every little bit helps. But we're really looking at, SAM grants I think can be up to $250,000, and you could potentially get one from Senator Hinchy and one from Assemblymember Barrett. So we're having those meetings. There are some potential federal grant funds for healthcare deserts, which we are a healthcare desert.
But they would have to continue to do that for years to come.
So actually their business plan shows them on year 3 breaking even. So it's really just, a lot of it is actually the construction expense. They're leasing the space in Tilden Plaza, and the owner of the plaza is responsible for the exterior, but they, as the renter, the leaser, is responsible for the interior. And so $300,000 is for the budget for construction. So, if any local contractors wanted to, come in and help renovate the interior, but yeah.
Anybody looking at you there, Liz?
No, I'm not an interior contractor. He was, but now he's not.
So the goal is to get to that fundraising goal, and that would get them through the first 2 years where they're in the red, and then their goal and their vision actually is to open nonprofit pharmacies throughout the nation. They've had the city of Kingston in touch with them. They've had Berkeley, California in touch with them. And so the goal is for New Lebanon to kind of become self-sustaining within the first 3 to 5 years. And then it would continue on, maybe have a local board as a, wing of their nonprofit board. And then they would go on to the next location and try to get started up there. So, yeah. Other privilege of the floor in the audience. Mr. Muad'Din, did you have anything for privilege of the floor?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. I just wanted to say that moving ahead with the local law that has been proposed that would make the supervisor the FOIL appeals officer, as opposed to having the town board be the appellate body of record. Should that pass going forward, I hope that you will have a special responsibility, that you'll feel an obligation that the Holding Administration will always release as many records as possible and be as open and transparent as possible. It's so very important that all of our people know that you believe in that and that you'll do your very best for the people of New Lebanon in that way. Thank you.
For the people who could not
Thank you,
hear, the
Mr.
gentleman
Moody.
was just saying that in terms of our decision to make history of the appeal, the single appeal, and he wanted to make sure that there was going to be openness and transparency, et cetera. And I think we all believe that the decision to make history of the soul rather than the board is one to facilitate the quick decision-making, and it's in everybody, it's in history's interest as the supervisor, it's in the board's interest to have open government, to ensure getting records out to people, and to avoid any unnecessary litigation for the failure to do that. So I think we all share the interest in making us as transparent as possible in whatever form and whatever body that does that.
And just to clarify, we introduced the local law tonight. There will be a public hearing on it in December. It is not about making me the FOIL appeal officer. It is about making the town supervisor the FOIL appeal officer, which, is me currently, but it's not about the person in the position. It's about the position. And I can assure Mr. Muad'Din and everyone that open and transparent government is something I have always strived for. And unless there is a legal or HR or other protected reason to have access to records, which is very small, I will always find in the favor of releasing and being open and transparent. Thank you, Mr. Muad'Din. Anyone else in the public for privilege of the floor? Yes, Pete.
I have a question on the bulletproof doors.
Yeah.
What happens with the area surrounding the door? Would that be made bulletproof as well, or is it just the door?
So in the example of the court, it is the door and the window, the access window, and the frame around it, but it does not extend into the sheetrock.
Okay.
So again, let's just say somebody came to my window with a gun wanting to hurt me. I would stand right behind my door. Yeah.
Somebody comes with a howitzer, there's only so much we can do.
Well, I only ask because bullets travel through walls.
Yes, no, understood.
Behind the door.
Yes. No, you. Again, if there was somebody shooting, you, just like this is bulletproof but not up here, I'm going to duck down under here. Yeah.
You got cat-like reflexes. I'm trying to figure out the logistics in my office, because if I stand in front of the bulletproof door, they can get me from the window behind me. So that's really kind of...
Not if they're inside.
All they do is walk outside and shoot me through the window.
And then you go in the
Well, you have your vault.
Well, I am going in my vault. I'm not going to worry about the door. I'm just going in my vault. Because no matter what, that's the safest spot. I'm going to keep snacks and drinks
All right.
in there.
I am going to make a motion to adjourn at 8:41 p.m.
I definitely second that.
Deb already beat you to it. Councilmember Asmussen?
Yep.
Councilmember Gordon? Yes. Supervisor Woolley?
Yes.
Councilmember Trainer?
Yes.
And Councilmember Tippercraft?
Yes.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Muad'Din. You were good with that screenshot. Your budget is good. It had.
Yes, it's just that
You did it right.
Oh my goodness.
We were in the meeting security, and I'm like, I have no idea. Of course. Thank you.
How about you?
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Have a nice day. Enjoy the rest of your
I would
day.
like that.
I'm going home and going to bed.
Have a nice holiday, too.
Yes. Oh, right, yeah. No, we my stepdaughters, father and mother-in-law live right down the road.